I'm back! Alright, so. About time to do some battle. But first.
Imagine we're sharing a little bit more of a similar value in terms of not having random people murdered and shit, I would probably be way more critical of the way that they industrialized and the massive sacrifices in civilian population that they incurred as a result of moving in that direction. So the question that's being asked, it would be very dependent on the conversation and who's asking and what we're talking about, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Because a little bit. Instance where you said that you wouldn't engage with the word somebody in your own country, which is kind of like the case that was going on right in this debate that started everything. But let's take it into like a slightly different situation, right? Let's say that you have somebody, in the United States of America, and they're a bit of a tanky, and they're arguing like, oh, actually, a bunch of the ways that they do like civil rights. What do you think of the way they do civil rights in China? I think that's kind of based. Would you just be like, I don't know, they can just do their shit over there, or would you be like,
well, no, because usually when you say the implication is,
I remember
a lot of this is contextual. The implication when you say the way that they do their stuff is really cool, the implication is usually I wish we could do it like them. So if somebody were to say that to me in the United States, I go, I really like how this is run, I would probably argue with them, because when you say I really like something, the default assumption is we're cut from the same cloth, we share the same values, they do something that I like better than what we do, so we should adopt that thing. I think that's all baked into that statement of, I like how these guys do their thing.
Okay. And let's say, let's say it's the other way around, and you have somebody who's like a big ANCAP type fellow, and they're talking about whatever, the way that like welfare works or whatever in. I don't know if you would consider like Nordic states, if you would consider that close enough that it would interfere with your other thing. But let's say that it didn't. Let's say that there was this other place and they had decently good welfare programs, and this ANCAP person was like, oh, well, how do you think that they were doing, like that was working there? Are you a fan of that, or is that going to be a situation where you're like, no, I'm not very interested?
Well, if I say that I really like a particular thing in another country, then it would be the exact same. I would evaluate the exact same as when the other guy said he liked the tanky policies. When I say I like it, I would say I think that we should adopt that particular thing. I think we should change this in our country.
Okay.
And generally, now this is going to be contextual. Like we're having a debate on who handled COVID better, Norway or Sweden, because they had slightly different approaches. Well, now it's going to be contextually between these two countries. It's not going to necessarily mean I want to adopt these norms. This is all going to be pretty contextually dependent, right?
Okay. Now, let's say that there is a situation, and I'm going to make this more abstract because I can't think of as many examples, but there is an individual and they're trying to paint you in a way. Let's say that they're trying to paint you as in whatever. You're hostile towards like a certain racial minority or whatever. And they're like, okay, what's your opinion on country X, which engages in some form of like pretty overt racial discrimination? How would you answer that?
What's my opinion on country X? Oof, I feel like it would super depend on I think it would really depend on the conversation and who's asking and for what purpose, on how I would answer that question.
Okay.
Let's say somebody were to ask me, let's say that I'm like debating a hardcore conservative, and they were to say like, okay, well, the Soviet Union and Red China were failures in every single fucking way. Okay, so how do you deal with that, Destiny? My response would probably be something along the lines of like, well, hold on. These countries actually had a ton of economic problems, and they made massive leaps in industrialization in really quick time spans, and they became like some of the largest and most powerful. They became the superpowers during the Cold War, and then now China is like an economic giant, right? I would probably give that argument if a conservative came at me with that. But if a lefty gave me like the exact same argument, because I would imagine we're sharing a little bit more of a similar value in terms of not having random people murdered and shit, I would probably be way more critical of the way that they industrialized and the massive sacrifices in civilian population that they incurred as a result of moving in that direction. So the question that's being asked would be very dependent on the conversation and who's asking and what we're talking about, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Because, so to the example of the conservative, right? What's going on here is you essentially have somebody who is politically different from you, and they're bringing up an example and asking what you think about something because they think that the thing they're asking you about is bad, and they're trying to ascribe it to you in some way.
They think the thing is bad. Wait, I'm sorry, repeat that. They think the thing is bad, and they're trying to ascribe it to you. Yeah, go ahead.
So John is politically different to you, and he's talking about fish culture in Sweden, and he thinks that that you're in favor of this, and he thinks that that's bad. So he's trying to be like, oh yeah, big fisher, Mr. Borelli. How about fish culture in Sweden, huh? Like, what do you think of that? And he thinks it's bad.
Okay, and then I would answer if it's good or bad, probably based on if I would want to adopt their laws or not. That'd be my assumption, right?
Yeah. So you would engage with that question. So isn't that the same thing that's basically that happened in the debate when they asked you about mandatory Palestine, where they're trying to make you be like, oh, you're a whatever imperialist colonizer or whatever. But there you were like, I don't know how I feel about passing judgment. I would need to look at the things at the time. Or is it different now because it's like a historical example?
Yeah, I think that's different. That's different because one, it's a historical example, and two, it's involving multiple countries, which makes it significantly different than just a policy. Like, for instance, like your fishing question could be meaningfully changed if you were like, oh, I think our fishing policies are, they're way too restrictive now. And somebody's like, or you say like, I think our fishing policies are appropriate now. And then somebody's like, well, what about how they used to fish, in Scandinavia in the 1500s or in the 1000s or whatever? And I'd be like, well, I mean, it might have been fine then, but like they weren't overfishing. There weren't even that many people living there. So it's a totally different thing. Or what if somebody said, okay, well, you really like the fishing policies in Sweden now, don't you? But let's say they only existed in Sweden because Norway like militarily dictated them to Sweden. I might say like, well, they got good policies, but like, I don't want it done to me like that. What the fuck? I'd rather vote on it. So I think that when multiple countries are involved, it's a little different because now you've got conflicting or clashing like legal systems and moral systems. And I think when it's historical, it's different because the historical norms are going to be different for how you're supposed to conduct yourselves as well. So it's a hard one-to-one comparison there. Yeah. Or I would break it.
Okay.
I think it's disanalogous in those two ways. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think we're already like fractioned off. We're talking about fucking fishing culture in Norway.
Sure.
So just returning to, I'm just retracing the conversation I had. The one thing that I might just not remember it. When I was like, okay, if you take my approach to it, you at least have a chance to convince the other person, whereas you kind of shut yourself off from that necessarily. What was the way that you responded to that?
I sidestepped that and I said that we weren't having a conversation on like the practical real world argumentation. We were having a disagreement, like principally on what do you do when you run into people with fundamentally different value systems. Because I feel like those differences are irreconcilable. You can't have that argument. And you were making the argument, well, reasonably you could, which you're right. Like in practice, you can, of course, like emotionally, you can appeal to people and get them to change their values. But I was arguing on a more fundamental level.
Okay. And if we take it to that broader level, how would you engage with that then?
What kind of engagement are you asking me for?
Well, I do agree. I go to Twitch eventually.
Was that what, I was like, oh, well, in my
But
situation,
there's much
framework,
from
I'm still able
YouTube.
to engage with people about this, whereas in yours, you don't have
Frustrated
that
my
conversation
family, and I
because
kind of wasn't paying
like,
attention.
the relativistic concerns that you have.
All right.
I think that if we, I think that if we want to, if you're kind of like asking me, because it feels like one of the goals, the goal of maybe all prescriptivism is to prescribe things, to be able to tell people to do different things, to act in accordance with your moral principles. I feel like if you want to do that, and this is the thing I think I do support, is that when you have some level of engagement with a person, your level of engagement is your opportunity to change them. So the example that I brought up was like U.S., Canada, Mexico trade agreement. We have the opportunity to change things based on our agreements there, or any multilateral, like the TPP would have been an example of that. Any multilateral trade agreements,
I haven't played
stuff
this
like
since
that,
the beta.
gives us the ability to influence giving people money for military stuff, giving people aid and conditioning and on certain things. Like that's our ability to change the way that we think other people act, and that might be an ability for us to exert our influence or our moral system on those people if we feel like it's important enough to transmit it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically less absolute than I was making it out to be. It's like if you think that there is a reasonable chance of you engaging in this conversation actually getting us anywhere, then you would still engage with it without these like relativistic inhibitions.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. But it's a different conversation. Like if you're going to ask me like, what can we do to change women's rights in these countries or whatever, I'll engage with that happily. But that's a fundamentally different thing than like, well, how do you feel about the fact that in Sudan women are allowed to do this or that? My answer is like, I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Bunch of Abrams.
Okay. So to wrap this up a little bit, I guess the final thing, with the last question there, if somebody asked me about it, I would be like, yeah, I don't think it's a good thing the way that like Sudan is treating women, for example, just to make sure that I've answered the same questions that you have.
Okay.
Now I think we kind of hinted at one of the things I was going to say originally. This is the last thing I have in my little like document here that I wanted to prepare. It seems like And this was my initial impression.
Sure.
My initial impression was when I asked you the first question, do you believe that Britain's administration of mandatory Palestine was righteous, whatever, that you would probably say either no or more likely, like, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure. And which was the answer we kind of got a bit in the beginning when you were like, I would need to look at the other standards and stuff at the time. But then we sidestepped a bit into the whatever moral relativism.
Or to be clear, I think my answer would have been like medium to medium yes, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm gonna throw this out there because it doesn't seem like this is exactly what happened in this case, but maybe through me saying this, you realize that, oh, maybe I do end up doing this. Might it be the case that sometimes when you're asked to give an opinion about something, when you think that question or the conclusion of that question is irrelevant to the actual discussion, you will just give a descriptive statement about what's happening?
Sure, kind of, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Okay. So
so like if somebody asks me, that's pretty inhuman too, I understand. Sometimes then I try to qualify this. Like if somebody asks me, like, do you think it was okay in Egypt that they conscripted like slaves to do this? Like the first thing my brain goes to is like, what were the norms at the time? What were the laws at the time? And if everything was on the up and I'd be like, yeah, I guess like that's what they did in the year, whatever, 0 or whatever the fuck. Like, so yeah, sure, it was fine. But I would engage with that differently than if I was having like a conversation on like moral philosophy or what should we encourage in other countries. It would be a different type of response, yeah.
No, I understand exactly what you mean, and my main thing here is just, you might have already thought about this, but in case you haven't, like, consider that again, because, you know, in this case, for example, that happened there, when you're engaging in a descriptive analysis, when you're basically asked or prompted for a prescriptive one, it gives the person you're talking to or the audience the wrong idea of what you believe. So, you know, in this case, it might have been like, oh, you know, you support imperialism and colonialism, which is what was said there. Or in the case that you mentioned,
I mean, like, the most I can do is I can say, like, well, at the time, and I think if you understand what I'm saying, you'll understand it. But if you don't, I don't know if me going on, like, a 5-minute spiel on, like, moral anti-realism and, like, the relativity of, like, moral value, I don't know if that's going to, like, be very convincing for most people. Like, I think most people, like, don't care. So, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that the way to answer this that would be better, because I'm not just a complainer, okay? I'm a solution provider as well. Wouldn't just be to basically say that, like, oh, you know, like do a 5-minute spiel on moral relativism, but it would be something like this, you know, like, you know, sentence number 1, basically give your prescriptive opinion on it, and that can be I don't know. But it can also be no, it can be yes, it can be whatever. But then, you know, follow that up with. But this is completely relevant to what we're talking about because X, Y, and Z reason. So instead of just giving descriptions and sounding like a spineless moral relativist, it's probably better to explain the irrelevance of the question instead of just answering it descriptively and being unclear on what you actually believe, and therefore giving the audience with the wrong impression of what you believe. Which I mean, I think was the goal with that question.
If you wanted to,
sound like you're a colonialism fan.
Yeah, if you wanted to, I'd be interested in hearing you navigate that in a live conversation. But I think if your interlocutors aren't functioning in good faith, their goal isn't really to find out what my stance is. I think their goal is to just try to like I think you even use the term character assassinate. So like I don't think I'm going to be able to say anything. Like they want to hear me say colonialism bad, imperialism bad, always bad. Every transfer was ethnic cleansing if it involved like non-white people. Like this is what they're looking for me to say, and anything I say outside of that is going to be like demonized or evil in their head. So I don't know if I should waste my time trying to appeal to that. Otherwise, other than just like giving a basic explanation for the audience. Well, 1917. I mean, this is probably normal. It wasn't.
I think it depends, and I agree, like, that there is, you know, it might not be in good faith, and I'm not necessarily saying that I would be able to do better on it. Of course, it's easy, you know, for me to sit, I'm eating my fucking lunch and I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh, you know, this clip.
When I say, real quick, I'm sorry, when I say I'd like to see you do this, I don't necessarily mean like, can you fucking do this in a live debate, blah, blah, blah. What I really mean when I say that is like, I'd be curious to see you try to do this and then to see how you respond to like what they're saying, because I think you understand what I'm saying. I think you understand my position. I don't think you think I'm a horrible person for my position, but we might just disagree on how we would apply moral standards across time. But if the goal is to make the other person seem bad, it would be like, oh, so you thought it was okay then? And I would say like, well, I think depending on the norms of the time, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay, so it was fine then, right? Just say that. Say you think like it was okay for them to subjugate those people and the ethnic cleansing was fine back then. What? Because we didn't have the term for ethnic cleansing. Like it's just going to be a bunch of questions like that. It's like the brain isn't even on. That's what I mean when I say like, oh, I'm curious to see you try, because what you're saying works if I'm trying to elucidate a point to somebody who's engaging with me in good faith. But if it's just like ad homs and character assassination and shit, like the further elucidation isn't, I don't think it's going to do me much. That's why I'll just say, yeah, that's what they did at the time, and then scoot on to the next point.
Yeah, so I think that there's one thing that makes it, broadly I agree with you, but I think there's one thing that makes specifically what I'm talking about here a bit different. So in the case where you're asked about something and you don't have a clear opinion on it, or it's like a relative opinion or whatever, it's either you're very unprepared for the debate, which is usually not the case, or it's actually really irrelevant to what's being talked about.
Sure.
So I agree with you. If you just give like a bit about like, well, you know, I believe that this is and this, and yeah, I think you need to take this into consideration, then I believe that you probably look as bad or maybe even weaker than doing like the strategy you're doing currently. But the key thing in your response should just be like, okay, clear up the prescriptive nonsense. No, I don't believe. Yes, I believe. I don't know. But then the bulk of your response and the snappy part is meant to be, but that's completely irrelevant to this discussion we're having because of this, and this. That's the key part.
Okay. I mean, I feel like if they really want to, they can make it relevant. Like if somebody says that's completely irrelevant, I mean, they just say, well, wait, hold on. How do you think we got here? That's the foundation of the whole crisis. How can you claim that's irrelevant? Like the big problem right now is that people accuse Israel of being an imperialist colonialist project. How can you say the colonialism and imperialism that started Israel isn't relevant to the conversation today? And Israel is still supported by foreign actors like the United States and Great Britain. So it's still an exercise in the same imperialist colonialist project it started off as 80 years ago.
Yeah. So maybe like a sample way to point out, because yeah. In my opinion, you know, that like the origins of that way, I think it's interesting. I think it should be studied historically, but I don't necessarily think it has too much of a bearing in terms of, you know, what prescriptions we should have. And I think two things you can point out, you know, in this sample response would be that, you know, first of all, this is essentially the history of every single nation state, right? So it's not like there's something unique here about Israel. It's either if we apply your prescriptions, if your prescriptions are based on the history of Israel as being this whatever colonialist project, then all your prescriptions also kind of need to apply to every other nation state, which some anarchists will be like, oh, based, but most people will be like,
For a limited time, shop Pixel's Summer of Savings event at googlestore.com.
Yeah, house front.
Refresh the everyday with Mentos Go. Yes to fresh.
Maybe not. And then the second point is that, you know, given that, you know, this was at least a generation ago, the way we consider kind of like, you know, remedy and punishment for behaviors that occurred in the past, they only kind of really work, you know, if the people are still around. Sure, there is a discussion about whatever generational justice and things like that. But at the same time, that makes those claims a lot weaker. And I think especially when coupled with the fact that this is something that happens, you know, in almost every single nation state in its formation, I think it makes its relevance relatively minor in terms of like what should be done now. But if we're having a discussion specifically about the history and like what actually ended up happening, then I don't think you can sidestep it in this way, probably, if you're trying to like establish like the facts. Or not even then, no. It's only relevant in the conversation where it's like, okay, what is your specific opinion on each specific element of the history of Israel-Palestine, which I think is a bit of a silly conversation to have in the first place, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just sounds like they're trying to invoke the normative evaluation of colonialism into the past, or project it into the past. They're invoking the normative feeling that it's bad, and then they want to project that 100 years ago into the past to show that it was bad. And then once you've tainted it from the beginning as being bad, now you've got like all you need to just say it's bad now.
So do you not think that the points about like it being long ago or it's the history of every nation state, do you not think those are good?
No,
good
because these fucking
or?
losers. I've seen people on Twitter say things. There was one tweet that got a decent, an okay amount of traction, I think, but people would say things like, oh, well, like if you believe this, should the United States give the entire country back to the natives? And people say like, yes. And it's like, okay. Like that's where it goes.
Yeah,
it's fucking
sure. But the good part is that I think that if we think about like an audience on like a scale of moderation, right? If the debate goes in the way that the previously has gone, with just like a descriptive statement and no explanation of the irrelevance, then you will have basically like nobody's going to change their opinion like against the person you're arguing with. Based on that being said, in fact, you might even have more people join up with the opposition because of there's this like prescriptive confusion that's going on there, where you know they think that they're asking you what you actually believe and you're giving a descriptive answer. But if you do the thing about like, you know, this response about this being the history of every nation state and it being so long ago the remedy punishment is unfeasible, sure, you will still have some people that are like, oh, based, but a lot of people will also be like, okay, I mean, clearly this is
No, I definitely agree.
So just because you can't convince everybody with this response doesn't mean that, it's not worth saying.
Talking.
Maybe. Okay. I'll think about it. Listen, hey, you should try some of these. I'm just curious. I just want to watch it play in real time because I feel like all of the, like, it feels like a virtue signal topic, and if I get like stuck in that for too long, it just, no matter what I say, it's just going to look worse and worse and worse. So that's why I just try to like maybe to move on to something with more substance, because it's just I don't think there's anything good to be mined there. Or I don't think any clarification makes my position look any stronger. Like if you disagree and you're on some weird moral absolutist cuck shit, you're always going to disagree no matter what I say. So I'd rather just like move on to something with more substance. That's my feeling. But I mean, like,
but maybe not everyone is a moral absolutist cuck, and I will acknowledge that, like, I'm obviously not having these high profile public debates. I've had more minor one, and I have had a lot. I have quite some disagreement with a lot of the people, who are at my university and stuff, and they talk about this, and I've gotten into some conversations with them.
Simpler for me to follow.
There was this old Ethan Klein video, and he talked about it was a story about how he was very poor at the time, living with Hila in LA, and he remembered how he had to put a bell pepper back because he was so broke. Like, he couldn't afford a bell pepper, and he was very upset by that. But Hila, they weren't really making money. I think she was trying to do art stuff, but they had to work jobs regardless of that. And they were having conversation about, like, is this YouTube stuff worth pursuing at this point? Like, is it really worth it? And they were in a much worse position than me, because I was like, relatively wealthy kid, everything paid for by my parents. They made the case that basically, like, well, if we never try, it will never happen.
Oh God, there was this sounds so mean. You and Sneeko are very similar. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to episode 7 of Bridges. Today I'm joined by our wonderful guest, Turkey Tom.
Hello.
I would actually disagree with that. I think
How you doing?
Tom's
I'm doing all right. I'm a little
radically
sleepy.
different from
A little
Sneeko.
bit.
You look like it, but you
Thank
always
you.
look like you're a little sleepy.
I
So
appreciate that. Yeah. You're a nice guy.
thanks.
No problem. Why do
do
you
you
look
wanna-
like that?
Look like what?
You just look like you look like you just ate a whole toilet bowl of shit.
What are you talking
Your
about?
face is, your smile is just so
I'm just
fucking...
like, I'm trying to be
It's
personable.
so fucking
It's
disingenuous.
not disingenuous.
You look like such
I'm
a
excited that
scum
you're here
fuck.
on my show, and I'm
you
trying to
look
have
like
like
you
a.
just ate like 3 people's shit.
Okay, and you look like you rubbed some in your hair before you came into my show.
Based,
So
I did.
Yeah.
I'm poop maxing.
Yeah, clearly.
I'm also diaper maxing. That's from chat.
Really.
Yeah.
Oh, like when you walked in earlier with that turban on your head and you were like diaper.
I need
That was hilarious. It was like so random. I was like, what do you mean?
zones
Yeah,
properly.
I need to
Anyway.
change.
That one as well.
Did you bring stuff to talk about today? Because I didn't do any notes for this episode, so
Did you actually do no notes?
no. I have Factorio here, and every time my factory backs up.
I do have stuff we can talk about, but that's not real. You would definitely have notes.
Oh, you think so?
This is your fucking podcast.
You don't know that?
What do you mean I don't know that?
I don't know any. Jon
True.
Snow. Okay.
All right.
You're
There
an
is
enigma.
going to be an issue.
I'm an enigma?
Yeah.
How am I an enigma?
You're young.
5.
You're successful.
I am.
How did you get your start YouTubing?
Oh my god.
Like a
Who did you
boss.
watch growing up? Who was like the person that you watched? Were you a secret Keemstar fan? I know you got a little bit of a.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Really? That's kind of weird.
you want the real answer? You want to really go deep on
Yeah, I
this?
want the real
You want
answer
the real
on
answer?
this. Okay? I've been watching Dr. K videos all week just to prepare for this one. Yeah.
So, I was born in 2002. So I think when I was 8 is when I really found out YouTube was like a thing. And that was like 2010. And around that time, like the biggest shit on YouTube was like fucking Annoying Orange and like Fred. Yeah.
You got a movie.
He did. He had 3 movies.
I didn't know that.
3 movies.
You're probably front row seat for all of them, huh?
I was. They're on Nickelodeon. There's Fred. There's Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred.
Yeah, C.
And then there's, I don't know what the third one is called. It might just be
Gotcha,
Fred
gotcha,
3.
gotcha.
Or there might be a Fred 4. There's a lot of Freds. John Cena's in them. He plays his dad.
Okay. They were all direct to Nickelodeon. They didn't get to
Start
the
here.
theaters.
I don't know.
Oh,
But I remember watching them on Nickelodeon
Q?
and liking them.
okay.
They're fire.
That's cool.
Anyway, so yeah, there was that. There was Annoying Orange. There was like Tobuscus and stuff like that. And I liked that stuff because I was like fucking 8 years old. But it wasn't really like super captivating to me. I didn't really care. And then, you know, as time passed, the Let's Players blew up, like PewDiePie and Markiplier and stuff like that. Those guys got big, and the stuff that they were doing was a little more personality driven. And they also like,
You playing?
you probably remember this better than me. There used to be a lot of viral videos and that would be the
What?
only thing you heard
Those
of
are
from that
daddy's-
person. And there
daddy's
wasn't really like a
pills
creator
for
phenomenon.
when he-
Like literally
He's
one hit
like
wonders,
got
basically.
out.
Always, but that was
There were
it.
like old videos on Ebon. Like I remember there was a guy called like Starter Up Steve who did like the
No,
55
son.
song. You've probably never heard of that. There's a
Son,
guy that did the
you're not going to
illustrating
just
for
be
like
candy.
the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it's like and Zenzi missiles. Do you have any
What?
idea what I'm?
I
Okay. Anyway, yeah,
Vaguely.
I know. What
Okay.
you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
But then, like,
You
I feel like
finished
post
it?
2010, there started to be this era where, like, you had, like, SXC Phil, and you had, like, Shane Dawson, and you had people who were, like, making consistent careers out of it. Like, they had a job, and it was, like, about putting out consistent content. It wasn't about, like, what's going to go viral. It was about, like, what's going to maintain this for longer. And the idea of, like, being a YouTuber became a thing. And so...
Can I ask? I'm curious. First of all, growing up, this is just generational questions. Firstly, do you watch TV at all, or did you ever watch TV? Or it was all just like internet
I
stuff?
watched a bunch of TV, yeah.
Okay.
The Cartoon Network.
And then I always hear this thing about,
And I-
you know, depending on the generation, people want to grow up and be YouTubers. My son says it a lot, but obviously I'm a YouTuber. You didn't have, I guess, any YouTubers in your family. Was this like actually a thing? Like, how old were you when you were like, I want to make YouTube videos and maybe do this as a job? Was this something you felt like in grade school or like in high school or?
Honestly, it was never a thing I thought would realistically be a job. Like, and I think that makes sense. I think that's a good expectation to have. I started really posting a lot when I was
I really
15. And then I didn't really expect it to be a job until I was in college, and I was like, this sucks, so I'm just going to try to make it a job. So I did, but I didn't have any expectation. I thought it would always be, like in my videos publicly, I would say, like, this will never be my job. This will always be like a side passion. I'm going to like go to college and get a job, because that's what everybody around me was doing. So I didn't have any expectation that it would be a job. I just liked doing it. I liked it.
Can I ask, what was the very first dollar you
there,
ever got
stinger there.
for content? Was it like a PayPal dono link? Was it AdSense? What was it?
AdSense,
Man.
yeah. There was a long time on YouTube when I didn't care enough to... I liked using copyrighted music. I think that using a copyrighted song, there's good uncopyrighted music, but using sometimes one song to me is like, you just got to use it. And so I just didn't give a shit. All the videos got claimed. I had like 100,000 subscribers, and I think I don't know if I had even made any money. I remember there was this one paycheck I got in like 2018 that I think was like $1,500 for December.
What does the
And I was like impressed by that. My parents were like, yeah, that's cool. But it wasn't a thing that was like, this is going to be his job. It was like, you're going to go to school and all
And
that.
it was $1,500.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I mean, that's not...
Toe-toos.
The difference is, I remember when I was in my early 20s when we started playing professional games, that if you could get like on a team, like a pro team, and your salary would be like $400 a month, it was like unbelievable. You'd like made it.
I come from like a very like affluent, like white, like stuck up, not stuck up, but like my parents are like the kind where if you ask my mom, what, if she's rich, she'd be like, well, we're upper middle class, we're comfortable. Like literally that's something she says.
As you like decide which pool you want to swim in that day, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely like in the highest tax bracket type stuff. So
if you're just curious, if you didn't really want to do it as a job and your parents were kind of like ambivalent or whatever towards it, they didn't care about you posting videos of yourself online and putting it on the internet?
They didn't like it. My dad was kind of indifferent. He was like, oh, it's kind of cool. My mom was like, fuck this. I remember there was this one moment when I was like 15 years old, and
artillery.
but I had like failed a math test or something. My mom was like, this YouTube thing is getting in the way. And I remember being at the family computer, and she was like looking up how to delete a YouTube channel, and I was like, no,
bro.
And I like unplugged. I had like 500 subscribers, and I unplugged the fucking thing from the wall. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, don't do this to me. I was so livid. And it wasn't even like I thought it would be a job. I was just obsessed with it.
That's
like I was
right.
so obsessed with it. I still am.
To hold zones.
But back then, like the ultimate punishment for me, for my parents, was taking away the computer. And I would always find a way to get it back. I remember there was this one time when I think I was 14 or something, and they got a lock on their the door to their room. And their room like divided like half of the upstairs at that time. It was like their room, and then they had like a big walk-in closet, and then they had like an office. And so they put a lock on it, so I couldn't get in. So what I did is I stole all the keys from the lock, every copy of the key.
I know he's got a
rode on my bike out in the middle of the woods, and I threw them as far as I could, so they would never be able to fix it, basically.
They probably got some A.
And they didn't, and the lock went off the door, and I kept using the computer. But I remember I would sit. This is something I've never even said. So my room had like it's like a square. You have like a bed, a desk, and another desk. And my mom would like want me to be doing homework or something. And what I would do is I would sit with my computer behind the desk in a spot she couldn't see me, and I would be on my computer all day. It would be on a laptop on the floor on my fucking knees, which I think fucked up my knees, but I would just be sitting there doing that all day. And if I would hear her coming, and I could hear very well at this point.
Dude, I think it's got to be like a young boy thing. Yeah, you can tell instantly when you hear a step. It's like, that's mom. She's upset, and she's coming like at 15 miles an hour. Like, yeah,
exactly.
So you're on your computer, yeah?
So I'm on my computer, and I would hear her, and the laptop was supposed to be in her room.
That's more close.
And so what I would do is I would fold it, I would slide it under the desk, and I would put a book on top of it, and then I would quickly get in position. I already had all my homework laid out. So I would be like, oh, I'm just studying. And then she would leave. And then I would just go right back to it all day. And that's all I gave a shit about. I did pretty well in school. I think I would have done worse if they hadn't really, like, you know, cracked the books on me, because they were very, they really wanted me to do well. So they made me take like AP classes, and I did pretty well in those.
They were never sophisticated enough to like check your YouTube channel or account to see if you were posting or doing anything.
They would check sometimes, but I think they just assumed if things were going well enough at any point in time that I wasn't really doing enough on it, that it wouldn't be a problem. But then eventually, if I like failed a test or something, or like a grade dropped below like 90, they would be like, what the fuck is going on, Tom? And they'd look at it and be like, what the fuck are you doing? You fucking asshole.
Is your name short for Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like my experience. But I remember going back to the early YouTube days, the first time I really felt like I always liked YouTube. I like watching like Markiplier, the gaming stuff, but the first time that it really felt like a community to me, which really enticed me, was like 2015-16 drama days with like Leafy, iDubbbz, Grade A Under A, I Hate Everything, all of those guys. What they were doing was really interesting to me, because it was like a community of people where they blew up making videos, some of them making fun of people, some of them talking about their opinions. And then there were these like different stories that would come along, and everybody would talk about the story and give their take. And like this guy would respond to this guy, and then they get a response here. There would be drama, and like some people's careers would get destroyed, which I think is kind of silly looking back to think that happened. But that was the perception, you know, that if one of these big guys made a video about you, your career might be over or something like that. 2015-16,
this is about when you started posting.
This is when I really started posting. And the videos were really bad. One of the first videos I made, which is on YouTube somewhere, it was a commentary video about a kid that I went to school with. He had like an anime review channel, and I was like, this guy sucks. And then I remember in like the part 1 of the video, I ended it on me drinking like a bleach cocktail with the Tide Pod in it. And then I remember some of the comments, because I had like 10 comments or something, and some of the comments were like, well, he has more subscribers than you, so someone was liking him. So what I did to prove scientifically that nobody liked him is I went around the school and I filmed videos of kids being like, this guy sucks. And I had like a 30-person compilation from the school that I put in a YouTube video.
You never got in trouble at school for bullying, or he never showed the video to like a teacher or the principal?
Oh, they did. They did. And I think I was like, that's not me. And they were like, okay. And then they called me back in and they were like, upon further inspection, it seems your face is in the videos. And I was like, I don't know, it's someone else or something. And they couldn't do anything about it because it wasn't on school grounds or something. The video wasn't posted on school grounds.
Oh, because you went to like a public school, or?
Yeah, even though it was filmed there, which doesn't really make sense, but the video was up for a little while, and then eventually I deleted it once I was like getting a little better making videos. But
when you were making videos, were you worried that like your parents or like your classmates would see stuff you're posting and think you're a loser, or?
No, I didn't give a shit. They were looking at it, and they did think I was a loser, but I didn't care. I was like, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Did you have like friends?
Yeah, I had a lot of friends. Yeah,
like in school, were there people that you talked to and that you knew and like you were kind of chill with, or were you like, fuck it, I'm like a child of the internet, I'm in this community? Like, did you have a lot of other people you could talk to, like Leafy and all these people about like in class, or?
We didn't really talk about YouTube stuff as much, maybe a little bit, but I had a group of friends that I had from when I was 8 when I moved to that town until I graduated high school. It was the same like 4 or 5 people.
Did any of them see you getting into the YouTube stuff and like want to be a part of it, or?
Yeah, early on there were a few of us doing YouTube actually. Like, I remember freshman year there was my buddy Ian. He had a YouTube channel. My buddy Isaac, and then there was the kid that I basically bullied. And we would like, at the time we had our own little community. We would like make response videos to each other. Like, we would shit on each other.
Okay.
And I remember early on I was the guy to shit on. We would go to school and like talk and hang out, and then we'd go home and be like, this guy sucks, on like YouTube, which was funny.
Okay.
And one of my friends, Isaac, I feel like he was actually way more talented and funny than me. He just didn't keep at it, but I just kept at it. I just kept doing it.
Was the one guy that you bullied, does he still make YouTube videos?
Not that I know of.
You did end a career. That's the first one.
Maybe he does. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, it was a pretty interesting time. I haven't really thought about this stuff in a while, actually. But yeah, I just kept doing it, and I remember I would like set goals for myself. Like I remember at the end of my freshman year, I want to say I had like 300 subscribers or something, and summer break was coming up, and I wasn't old enough to work a job yet, but I was old enough for my mom to make me volunteer at places for free for no pay. So she wanted me to do that, but my real focus was YouTube. I was like, I'm gonna do this. I only have to volunteer 4 days a week. I'm gonna grind the fuck out of this. I remember telling kids in my, I think it was environmental science I was taking at the time.
I'm bad.
I was like, I'm gonna have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the summer, and they're like, you should be more realistic with your goals. I was like, fuck you. And then at the end of the summer, I had 1,000, and I came back to school.
Damn.
Yes, he was wrong. They were like, we don't really care. But yeah, basically,
okay.
I was just very obsessed with it. I was really, really obsessed with doing that, and the idea of this like community existing was really interesting to me. And then at some point when I was like 15 years old, I think I had 5,000 subscribers. I had previously been shouted out by a channel you probably know of named Quentin Reviews.
I feel like he's in my YouTube chat.
Do I have any?
Is he?
What is he? What kind of content does he do?
He makes like media analysis. He makes like 8-hour videos about iCarly. I feel like he wouldn't like you because he's like a breadtube kind of guy, or he was for a while.
By
Seems
that?
like
I'm a
a
breadtube
weird
kind of guy.
Whatever.
Get out.
He's like a big ContraPoints fan. But at the time he was like more of a commentary channel, and he shouted me out when he had like, I don't know, 25,000 subs, I think. And so I
Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. Sell it online, take it in person, and go big, like 1 million orders big.
Luckily, this has a files button.
Whatever your stage,
No,
business
can't
is a
skip.
pro.
It's unfortunate.
Grow with Shopify. Sign up today at Shopify.
Okay, well the plan's pretty simple. I'm gonna set up a static line, and then I'm gonna
like
slowly
1,000
push on the
subscribers from that
left
or something.
Okay.
And then at some point, there was this guy named Kavos, and Kavos was like a big commentary channel at the time. He was killing it, and he was making a lot of videos about Jake Paul. And I like made some tweet, and I was like, why is every video about Jake Paul? Which is like a dumb criticism, doesn't really matter. But Keemstar saw that, and he was a big Kavos fan at the time. And he was like, he made this video where he said a lot of shit, but one of the things he said was, why is your name Turkey Tom if you're not even a fucking turkey? And that meme stuck for a while. But it got some attention at that time, and so while I didn't get like a big sub boost from it, a lot of creators on Twitter who saw that, they were like, oh, Keemstar's going after this kid, let's like subscribe to him or something. It was kind of like a pity thing, honestly. But I met a lot of YouTubers like Willie Mac Show at that time, who I'm still friends with to this day. And that was, I was younger than all of them at the time. I think I was 15 or like 20. But they like gave me YouTube advice and what?
I'm so sorry. Keep going.
They gave me a lot of YouTube advice, and we just talked about content stuff, and I just kept doing it. And then,
wait, backing up. This is when you're a sophomore in high school?
yeah, like early sophomore year.
When you're starting to post, are you approaching this like strategically? Like, are you trying to map out, like, if I drop a video at like 9 a.m., I can maximize for Europe? Or are you thinking like, this is what's hot right now, I see it on the algorithm, you're checking your like time watched? Or are you just like pumping out videos because you're like, oh, this is fun and I like it and hopefully I grow?
No, I definitely had like in mind, like I need to do things to grow. So one of the things I would do is at the end of every school year, because I didn't have as much time during school, I was like, I need to get ready videos for the summer because I want to post more. So I would get like 4 videos ready. So I had like June laid out when school ended. And then because I would have that backlog, I'd have time to get videos for the next month ready, and I would just keep rolling that. And then the idea behind that was like, by the time the school year runs around, I probably will have a month of videos before things get inconsistent again. So the summer was like the big growth period. There was, after sophomore year, I think I had 13,000 subscribers.
Damn.
And then there was this there was this like wave of channels, like the story time animation guys, and I don't even remember what I criticized them for looking back. I think it was just dumb shit, but I made a video about it. They got 1 million views that summer. And I went from 13,000 subs to 50,000 subs.
And this was in 2016? 2018. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, 2018 I think. And so from there I was like, okay, well now I have like a decently sizable audience. Now I've gotten from, I'm still a small YouTuber relatively speaking, but I have an audience watching me, and I just kept going from there. I think when high school ended, I think I had 100,000 subscribers ish, maybe 120. And then I went to college, and freshman year was like tolerable, but I didn't really like it.
Sure. Before college, okay, so here's a question I've got. I think that when people are doing small businesses, when people are trying to make it in the world, people will start with things that they love. They have a really hard time I don't want to say monetizing it, but like working it into something that other people can consume, right? So I'm sure that for every person like you, there are like 10,000 people who are like, I really like this video. You mentioned, Isaac or Ian, one of your friends, where you're like, I think he was probably more talented than me. And I'm sure I've met people like that who are like, this guy could put me out of business.
He was just way funnier than me.
Yeah, but why do you think that in your approach to things, it wasn't just you like making videos to see what would happen? Like you strategically kind of approached it, and you were willing to kind of like do that extra work to take like the fun, passionate thing of like making videos, but also kind of work it in like a business. Was it all just fun to you, or did anybody ever? I'm curious, like to start that process. What was it that got you thinking of it more like a business, or like more like I need to strategically approach this, and more rather than like, oh, I'm gonna be a YouTuber and do whatever?
It was a business to me, but it was the business of like views and subscribers. I didn't really care about the money. I didn't really need money.
Yeah, when I say business, I don't necessarily mean like focusing on the money. I just mean, but you're like strategically like focusing on growth and stuff. You're not just like randomly posting whenever. Like the fact that you're thinking ahead for summer, I need like a string of videos, and I'm trying to hit these goals or whatever.
Well, I knew that the consistency was really important, and I could see that because I could see that the YouTubers that did well were the guys who were posting, fucking every day, and I wasn't able to post every day. I was trying to post like twice a week at one point, I think, back then. But it was I knew that like to build an audience, you need to be in the limelight. You need to give people a reason to pay attention to you right now, especially when you're a smaller channel. Once you've got a little bit of an audience, then you can maybe work on a passion project that takes longer, but because the audience is waiting for it, they'll probably give you views or whatever. Like, look at H-Bomber guy right there. I barely fucking post. He posted one video in the past few months and it got 20 million views or something like that.
Killer video.
Ours did that?
Was it?
Or wait.
It did very well.
Oh.
Performed well.
Didn't that guy kill himself?
Oh, I get it. Allegedly. I don't think he really did.
Oh shit, never mind.
But
when you're approaching and you're making the videos and you're strategizing, you're doing these particular things, right? In the path to doing that, did you ever feel discouraged by like online stuff, or did you ever post a video and like feel like shit because it didn't do as well, or were you always like, I'm gonna make it, I know I'm gonna make it? There's like not even a doubt in my mind.
There were definitely doubts, but I guess my mindset behind it was just like, there was this old Ethan Klein video where he talked with his audience. It was a very candid video, and he talked about there was a story about how he was very poor at the time, living with Hila in LA, and he remembered how he had to put like a bell pepper back.
It was a beautiful red bell pepper, and Hila wanted this red bell pepper for his salad.
For a salad.
Yeah, for a salad. I was looking at the things in our cart, and I'm like adding it up in my mind. I'm counting up everything in our cart. I'm like at 19. We have $20. I'm like, I weigh the bell pepper. I take the bell pepper, I weigh it. Looking at the scale, I'm like, this puts us over. We can't buy this bell pepper.
Yeah.
This puts us over.
Yeah, and I think we both just really remembered the moment of like putting it back.
Because he was so broke that he couldn't afford a bell pepper, and he was very upset by that. And he was talking, Hila, they weren't really making money. I think she was trying to do art stuff, but they had to work jobs regardless of that. And they were having a conversation about like, is this YouTube stuff worth pursuing at this point? Is it really worth it? And they were in a much worse position than me because I was like, relatively wealthy kid, everything paid for by my parents. And they made the case that basically like, well, if we never try, it will never happen. If we don't try, it definitely won't happen. If we try, at least there's a chance. And maybe, if it doesn't work out, we can look back someday and be like, well, at least I tried, right? So that was kind of the mentality I had that like, I would definitely I remember after I got like the 1 million view video, the next video I posted got like 500,000 views, which was good because it was related to the main video.
Jesus, I couldn't even imagine getting views like that.
Which, it was way better than I was doing before. Because previously I was averaging like 10,000 views, but it was still like, well, what the fuck? Like I had 1 million, now it's 80,000. But I had the mentality basically that, well, I have the audience now. I'm in a better position than I was before. I have more of a chance now of getting another video with 1 million views. And, if I quit, if I have this like perfectionist mindset, this is the thing a lot of artists have. They're like, artists, whatever. They're perfectionists. And there's this quote that says, I'm stealing this from someone. The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
It's basically just to say that if you never try to put out anything, you're constantly focused on perfectionism. Maybe once in a while you put out something perfect, but you'll never build a consistent thing out of it. You'll never actually make a living because you're always focused on making the most vital, perfect thing. And ultimately, it's hard to get attention from that. It's hard to make people care, right? Especially early on. You need to give people a reason to like care about you consistently for any amount of time before you can set the expectation that, okay, now I can make these perfect projects, right?
Sure. Okay, I'm not trying to circle jerk you too much, but 14 to 18, young man's life. really challenging. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're 21, so you're still in a challenging phase of life.
Get a head start on leveling up with an accessory that boosts your experience points.
Get you out.
Final Fantasy XIV Online Dawn Trail. Pre-order now.
Happy accidents. It's one of the things that makes Pinterest Pinterest. Where that thing you didn't even know you were looking for leads you to that other thing, and you realize you're
engineers at this point.
Goblin core girly girl.
What the hell am I listening? This is
you're
ridiculous.
growing, there's girls, or boys in your case. There's, I'm just kidding. There's girls, you're trying to do school, you've got parents, you've got college, and all of this. And I'm sure that it must feel like you're in a pinball machine with all your other friends who are just bouncing around doing whatever, but you're like on this career path, right? Where you're like grinding away at this YouTube stuff and you're working to build this into a career while everything else is going on in the background. There are people that try to do this full time, like well into their 20s or past school or when they're more stable, and they still can't handle getting a 500,000 view video and then posting an 80,000 view video, or they can't handle not having like a continual shout out or growth, or when they hit that 20,000 subscriber bump 1 month and the next month they get 200 subs, it's like they can't, they're over. What, like, I'm just so curious, and I understand it's hard to answer because maybe it's just a biological thing, you're wired, or was it like a certain video or a certain mentor or a certain YouTuber? Like, why do you think you were able to push through all of that so really like effortlessly?
No one can.
Because it seems like when you talk about your early uprising, it sounds like an entrepreneur in his 30s who's like, yeah, I started grinding at this thing, I modeled my behavior off of successful people in the field, and then I continued to persevere and push through, knowing that I'd make it, and eventually I did this and that and that and that, and I did it. And it's like, okay, this sounds reasonable, but then you're like, oh, and I was 15 when I did this. It's like I
had really bad tunnel vision, and I still do. Like, I was just very obsessed with it. Like, I cared about girls, but not that much. And not that I was getting a lot of female attention anyway at that time. And today, but I was really tunnel visioned on it. I just, like, there was nothing I actually enjoyed more than doing that. Like,
did you ever run into peers who were like obsessively trying to build a YouTube thing that you wanted to talk to, like anybody in school or college? Nobody.
No, there was nobody. Everybody was just kind of along for the ride. That's what I felt like when I went to college. It was just like it's the expected thing to do, which is why for a degree I picked digital media and journalism, because it fit what I wanted to do best. But once I got there, I realized a lot of the kids there were kind of disinterested in what they were actually doing. They didn't seem really motivated for it. The professors were, they were decent, but a lot of them were like working second jobs. Like, they weren't really making money. And I remember I had this conversation with a professor about like after class, about like the realistic expectation of making money, and they kind of just laughed at me and they were like, go to a different school, And the idea of like being broke or like writing for BuzzFeed or something, and, like living in New York and like writing shit I didn't care about was so dismal.
Did you have the perspective at the time, or did you realize that being as stupid as it sounds, being 18 years old as a freshman in college with 100,000 subs on YouTube, you would already hit a level of success that most of your classmates probably wouldn't for the rest of their lives? Did that ever like dawn on you, or?
I don't know, a little bit, but I feel like they could have done it if they just took the steps I did, and they didn't, for whatever reason.
Sure, but I mean, that's true of almost anything, right?
Yeah. I remember one thing I would do early on to like encourage myself a little bit was, it's really easy to look at a big YouTube channel and be like, fuck, how could I ever get there? How could I ever get there? But if you go on the Wayback Machine on archive.org, there's a very useful snapshot to see how everybody's channel was doing at any point in time. So I would go on like a YouTuber I saw that like I was like, oh, this guy's content is so good. How the fuck did he get to this point? Like, how did he, Rome wasn't built in a day or whatever. How did he get here? So I would go back through his channel archive and go through the earliest screenshots and see when he had like 400 subscribers, and be like, what the fuck was he doing then? Nice. And then like a year later, where was he? And like, how can I model my success to that level and get where they were within that time frame? And I would kind of build goals roughly based off of that.
Do you remember in particular like any early YouTuber stuff you watch where you were like, that's a really good idea, I'm gonna like bite that, or this guy's doing this really well, I'm gonna copy this for a video? Do you ever remember like kind of trying to adopt any kind of habits or anything from other people?
Absolutely. I mean, early on there was definitely people I was straight up ripping off. Obviously Leafy was one guy that I was very captivated by the fact that he was posting every day, getting so many views on content that probably took like fucking 2 hours to make, like a day. Like, that was so interesting to me. And I think a lot of that was right time, right place for him in particular. It didn't last forever for him, but he really got early in on like a really interesting kind of phase, and he was very industrious about how he was posting and how he would do it every day. And the thing about Leafy that a lot of people don't remember is back in the day, the stuff that he became super known for was like basically bullying content, right? Like, just like, this kid sucks, look at his fuck up tooth. But before that, the stuff that got him there, got him to like 200,000 subs, was like CS:GO content, like story time videos, like fucking around in video games with friends. And then at a certain point, his like growth plateaued, and he wasn't really growing. And then he was like, "Well, what the fuck is the next thing?" And so by seeing that, I realized like YouTubers generally are not totally aimless with what they're doing. There's some strategy behind it. They can like make a decision to craft their future. And I very much was like,
I really thought there was going to be a lot of
thinking behind what
I
you're
saw
doing
it
and what the
on
next
plane,
thing is going to
though.
be. And there's this phrase like getting out while it's still good, which I think is really important. A lot of people will blow up over one thing and they won't be able to figure out what the next thing is in time. And they'll just kind of drift into the sunset off that one thing. And they're too scared to jump on the next thing. It's just like, well, what if it tanks my career or something, right?
Yeah.
What if I lose the
Counter
following
battering.
But if they never make that jump, once again, like Ethan said, if you don't try, you will fail. If you do try, there's a chance you'll succeed, you know? I very much had the mentality that like, once in a while I got to rethink what I'm doing, because before you know it, you could be kind of down and out. Your content could be passe.
Yeah.
And I still have that to this day. So I got to think about a lot right now, which is like, what is the next thing? Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the like modeling after other people, because it's, I think when you talk to a lot of people that aren't artists or whatever the fuck this is, a lot of people think that the stressing and going for original ideas and trying to do totally original stuff all the time is like the best way to make your name initially. And I remember, because I went to school for music, and especially in jazz, you spend a lot of time transcribing solos where you just listen to a guy play and you try to like learn it over and over and over again. And we always learn the saying that like I think good artists, it's something like good artists imitate and great artists steal. That like if you want to become like really great and you're just starting out, it's better to just like totally copy other people's stuff, make it part of your vocabulary, than grow off of it. So it's interesting for the YouTube stuff that you essentially approach it the same way. I'm curious, now that you're a larger YouTuber, you mentioned before that there must be some strategy. When you look at a lot of large YouTubers, do you feel like most of them do strategize, or do you think they mainly kind of got lucky and then they plateau and they can't figure out how to move on? Or what do you think? Yeah, what do you think is like the average YouTuber approach? Do you think that they strategize as heavily as you do, or they kind of go with the flow?
I feel like on average, the average YouTuber probably, they strategize enough to get big to a certain point they're comfortable with, and then unfortunately they get kind of lazy. They don't really push the envelope or the boundary anymore.
Like Hassan Piker.
Yeah, and they, yes, and they kind of coast off of that for a while, right? I think it's an exception that somebody's able to make it for a long time. I will say,
like Destiny.
Yes. There used to be this like notion, you probably remember this, that like if you're a YouTuber, you've got like 3 to 4 years and that's it, and you're done. And that's because a lot of people back then weren't strategizing or thinking about the next thing. But now you've got these legacy creators who've been doing it for like 10, 15 years who are still around, like streamers. You've got YouTubers who do it. I mean, I mentioned SXE Phil earlier. His channel has had various like, you know, high points and low points, but he's been consistent throughout time and trying to improve what he's doing. He's still doing it to this day, getting pretty good views. And that's the case for a lot of people. But also, you know, for
really open,
I'd say that's probably like 10, 20% of people. A lot of other people, they're kind of a flash in the pan.
No,
they're experimenting when they're starting out. They're figuring out how to get big. Once they have a big blow up, it feels impressive to them. They never really escape that. And I think that's a very unfortunate position to be in. I'd be like very insecure and paranoid about that.
It sounds like really stupid, but I think a lot of YouTube careers are... You ever watch SpongeBob?
Yes.
You see the ripped his pants episode?
Yeah.
Unironically like that. You have like your one-hit wonder, and it's always kind of sad when you see those people, because you'll look at YouTube videos they're pushing like 5 years later, and it was like a 5 million view channel, or like 5 million sub channel, and they're getting like 5-figure, like 10,000 views per video, and they're trying to do kind of like the same shtick they did in like 2017, and I'm like, ugh.
I know you mentioned Hassan. I don't know if that was tongue-in-cheek, but that is kind of the problem he's having right now, I think, where he blew up off of his ripped pants was like, cops, kill cops, or whatever. And he never really developed a fan base that liked him that much outside of that. And so now he's trying to do like IRL content and stuff like that. And it's working better than the average person could ever do, because he has a big audience, right? He does.
And he has like the assets to make it. Like he's a decently funny guy. Obviously he looks really good. Like he's got a workhorse ethic. Like the guy will stream like 12 hours a day for years.
I think he's done it too late.
I need to do
no way. He's still, his concurrent viewership is still like 15-20,000 viewers.
He can come back. But what I'm saying is like, it would have been a much more seamless transition if he had done it like 2 years ago.
For sure, yeah. But I think sometimes people get stuck in what you said, where you've got your blow up thing, because when you try to angle towards something else, it requires a lot of trust in yourself, because you've got to be willing to take a dip in views to be like, it's going to be fine, like I'll figure my new thing out and come back. And some people, when they hit that first dip, they run back to the last thing, and then they just ride that all the way into nothingness.
You have to be comfortable, I think, when you're at a size like that, when you're making money like that, you have to be comfortable maybe for a few months, maybe for a year, losing like 20-30% of your revenue. You're still gonna make. I mean, he's still gonna make mad money.
Yeah,
we know YouTube.
He's already retirement.
If either of us lost 20-30% of revenue, we still make mad money, right? But it would be like, ooh, the number's going down. And that instinctively in your human brain is like, what the f is this?
And I also think it sounds weird and it sounds very disconnected and privileged or whatever, but I'm pretty sure at this position, like, you're not really thinking about the money, are you?
I think about it for sure in terms of like a growth thing, but it's not meaningfully changing my life.
Okay, like if there was like a copyrighted song that I could use to take a video from 300,000 views in a video to like 4 million views, I would instantly go for 4 million. I wouldn't even think about like monetizing. Yeah.
Well, it's also because like what's more valuable when you have the money already is like the thing I was talking about early on, which I was solely focused on, which wasn't money. It was just like acquisition of content, acquisition of swag, acquisition of people watching my stuff. And I was very fortunate at that time because I didn't have to worry about bills. My parents paid for everything. They bought me my first car. They paid for my phone bills. My mom
was your first car?
What?
What was your first car?
Toyota Corolla.
Oh.
2016. It was my grandmother's old car.
Was it brand new? Oh no, grandma's old car. Okay.
It was a 2016. I think I got it in 2019. So it was a few years old, but it was pretty cool.
That's pretty new. Yeah. What happened to grandma?
Deleted. Still alive.
Why'd she give you a 3-year-old car?
She got a RAV4.
My God, you guys are just... Did you ever crash your car?
Actually,
I backed it into a Jeep.
Possibly.
Did you tell him, or did you just like drive off?
No, he was there. It was in a parking lot. I backed into the Jeep. He was like, I remember like as I was backing it into it, he was like, bro, wait! And then I smashed into his roll cage. And so his Jeep wasn't damaged. Okay. But there was a giant imprint of the roll cage on the car.
Did you tell your parents?
Oh, yeah. I was living with them at the time. There was no way I could get away with it.
You're gonna say, "Oh, that must have happened in the parking lot." Did you ever lie to your parents, or were you?
I lied. I lied to them like crazy. Yes, but there was no way I would have got away with that. It was like a really bad, like it was like a $4,000 fix on like a $12,000.
You really? How fast do you back up?
Not that fast. It like damaged the frame and everything though. This car just like crumpled.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. How old were you then? Was that like 18 or?
Yeah, I was like 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're walking through class. You got
on that side anyway.
All these people commenting on videos. You got all these subs online. You're getting all this attention. Does that not do anything to your ego when you're talking to classmates? You got people that are like, I just came from high school. Like ordinarily, it's like you were the big fish in the small pond, and now you're the small fish in college. But you're not really. Do you ever feel that at all? Does that impact your attitude, your ego, the feeling like you're getting more attention or better than anybody or whatever? Like
sometimes, I mean, sometimes I'll have that thought, obviously, but I generally, when I have that, I'll catch myself and be like, shut the f***. It doesn't really matter. I will say my mind was definitely elsewhere, always in class. Like, you know, teachers talking about whatever the fuck. And I'm just thinking about like, what the f happening on YouTube right now? You know, what am I going to do when I get home? What's the video I'm going to make? So yeah, I mean, it didn't really turn into a huge ego thing for me, I don't think, because I was self-aware of the fact that I had seen YouTubers become very egotistical and unlikable and unrelatable, and you don't want to be in that position. You don't want to get too high on yourself. Obviously, to a certain
Hassan Piker.
Yes, obviously to a certain extent, what you and I do is very cool, and I think a lot of people are envious of the position. But I don't want to let it get to my head, really. You know, I don't think there's any benefit to that.
Why do you think when you look at YouTubers or streamers today, what do you think are the things that make you the most unlikable? Like, what are things that, like if I wanted to destroy my reputation with my audience, or if a YouTuber wanted to just destroy, like, what are the things that you think make people?
I think it would be hard for you to do it, but broadly speaking, I think a thing that pisses people off a lot is complaining about your job. Everybody complains about their job. Obviously, it makes sense, and there are valid complaints.
Like Hassan Piker on that one viral clip.
That's why I'm actually bringing this up. There are valid complaints to bring up with the job. Like, there are stresses to it, and in some ways, it can be harder than a normal job. But when you're making the amount of money that we're making, when you're making fucking YouTube videos, when you have like all these followers and stuff, people just, they don't want to hear it. When they're stalking at fucking an Amazon warehouse, right, and they're having like a shitty day, and then they hear that Hassan Piker is like, you know, it's so socially draining, like it's just not something they want to hear. So that's a big one.
Yes, a real job can be gruesome. A real job can make you very tired, but a real job doesn't.
If you're making money from it, that's
know what
the
I
real
mean?
job.
In the same way that 9 hours of streaming absolutely will.
I think a big thing definitely is.
What about people have to do 12-hour mandatory shifts at like warehouse?
Go from a very relatable, down-to-earth person to being a rich person. You know, do rich person things. You know, talk about rich person things. this is a big thing for like someone like Tom Segura, who's a pretty famous comedian. He got a lot of shit with his audience because he went from being relatable to being rich, and instead of just being rich, he would be like, all these fucking broke losers in my comment section, call me when you have a Porsche, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like people don't want to hear that.
I think I feel like XQC was running into problems with this, where he was like showing up in crazy outfits, like at casinos, like taking pictures of like $10,000 stacks and gambling and shit, and people started to feel like he wasn't the same kid that was just playing Overwatch.
People especially don't like it when they respond to criticism, being like, "Well, I'm rich." You remember he did that during the Ethan thing. He was like, "Look at my watch." He did it when
house is on my wrist. Yeah.
Yeah, he did it when somebody, someone on Twitter called him out. It was kind of a dumb criticism. They were like, "I can't imagine a bigger scum fuck," and it was some like soy facing at like a building being destroyed in Gaza, and he responded with a picture of him with a bunch of money. That's hilarious, and I think his audience at this point is cool with that. But obviously, to like people outside of your audience, that might hurt your ability to grow because they're just going to see you as like a scum streamer they're never going to want to hear from.
Yeah.
There are certain things you can do that turn people off, and that's. I'm definitely guilty of doing things like that. Not with the flexing thing, but I've definitely done things that, like, to a certain amount of the audience, we'll just have them like they don't want to listen, you know. And I think it's okay to do some of that stuff if that's who you are. I think it's important. You don't want to hide it. But at the same time, you don't want to get in a habit where that's all
I'm not pushing
doing. That's everything that people see of you.
There's a really fine line. I know this because I transitioned from StarCraft into a horrible game called League of Legends. And when somebody is like, when somebody's angry, but they're not really angry, or they're like angry, but it's like funny angry, it's like the most hilarious thing in the world to watch. But when somebody's angry and they're like genuinely salty, it's like the least fun thing in the world to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, like watching somebody like playing whatever, teammates, or you know, but they're like having a good time and they're fun. It's like, it's cool, it's funny. But as soon as you can tell somebody's like genuinely really upset and they're just like salty as then you can enjoy it, but only like in an anti-fan way. And then ordinary fans are like, this is dumb, like I don't want to watch this anymore. Yeah.
When you were streaming early on, did you have like a content strategy behind it, or was it just like, I'm making money, I just need to fucking ride this thing?
I think no, I just streamed a ton. I think that when I was in high school, I was a pretty funny guy. I've always done decently in terms of like comedy, and we had a like TV set up outside the band hall, or sometimes inside the band room, and we'd sneak up like during church because I went to a private school, so we'd like sneak in. I think it was like every other Wednesday, we'd sneak up in one of the practice rooms and we'd be playing like Smash or Mario Kart or whatever. And it was just funny, like we would like be playing games and like screaming at each other and like insults and like just like crazy like off the wall, the worst fucking shit you could say, and it was like always funny to do it. And then I had a friend suggest to me, I think when I was like 20 or 21, he was like, oh, there are like these weird Korean kids online that have like this software and you can like stream. And this is back when it was like 200 kilobits per second. And you can only have like 15 viewers, or else you'd have to pay like $50 a month to have like 10 more viewers. It was just, ouch. But then when I started making content, I started going. But I have like a lot of natural proclivities or whatever that gear me towards being a content creator. Like online hate doesn't really bother me that much. I'm pretty independent in terms of my view of myself. I don't let other people like make me feel like shit. Which it seems like there's a lot of stuff that is also kind of built into you as well.
This is good though. I'm able to train his forces.
Because
massively.
It was morally developed for me. Like
you can say that, but like
early on,
not to pull the age card, but like I could believe you if you're like in your 20s or 30s. But the fact that you were able to do this in your mid-teens. Like, if I would have been a big streamer when I was 15, 16, 17, bro, I would have been such an arrogant, egotistical piece of shit. It would have been the worst. I'd be the worst human being ever.
I probably was more of an asshole. I wasn't a piece of shit, but I probably was more of an asshole.
Sure, maybe, okay.
But
I did bully that one kid, that's true.
Exactly. But I remember early on when I was 14, like, I think by the time I was 16, it stopped really bothering me. But I think when I was 14, I started making videos. I remember I would get a comment and I'd be like, what the I'm going to leave a 5-paragraph response. Okay. I would be like, you're wrong and here's why. And I would like go dark Viper mode. I would detail why.
Now you do that on your alternate account. Yeah.
Exactly. Now I do that on my 15 alternate accounts where I spread misinformation about myself so I can counter it on my other account.
Based. Okay.
But yeah, with your content stuff, obviously Twitch is a big deal, but I feel like YouTube has been instrumental in making you a lot bigger and a lot more seen. Just because it's a much easier entry point to watch, you know,
and it's better. My biggest like career mistake was putting YouTube on the back burner for like 10 years. I don't think I started taking it seriously until like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I had a channel, the thing that sucks, I had a channel in like 2011 with like 80,000 subs, which right now doesn't sound like a lot, but back then
for a streamer,
yeah, I had like a million view YouTube video, which back then is like, damn, in 2011, but I just like didn't do anything. I was like, I'm a streamer, I don't do YouTube. So that was really bad. But
do you think a lot about like how to cater your streams to the YouTube audience, or like this is gonna get clipped? Do you think about that?
Looks like I did.
A little bit. I most of my stuff is long form focused, I think. I don't typically think about. But now I kind of I've borrowed the Harper strategy where I just kind of like say really retarded shit. So when people clip me, like half the time I just say I was obviously trolling. Because prior to that, people would clip like 20 seconds out of like a genuine question to make it sound like I'm an idiot. And I'm like, okay, well now I'm just gonna start making shit up. And people said it was stupid and everybody called me out on it, but I think it actually has worked now because now whenever people spread clips on me on Twitter, everybody's like, this is obviously a troll and people don't believe him as much anymore. So thank you, Nick Fuentes. He's back on Twitter.
Besides from that, I guess more what I mean is like when you're doing a stream and you have like a docket in mind of like, this is what I'm going to talk about. And I know this video that I'm going to talk about is probably going to get clipped for YouTube and get a bunch of views. Do you have any of that in your mind?
So for me, actually, I guess I'm kind of curious with this you too. I always maximize, probably as of like 10 or 11 or 12 years ago, I used to give lessons for StarCraft because when you were programming, you gave lessons to people. And I was approaching it where like, there was a week where I had like 25 hours of lessons that were scheduled. And I'm like, I am actually
never had that.
streaming. I can't tell people like to do the basics anymore. This is driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And especially in that period, it was the only time where I was like, oh God, I don't want to wake up and stream. And then I'm like, bro, I was cleaning carpets like 3 years ago. Why the f am I like complaining about this? And I was like, I'm going to maximize my content for things that I like. So that might mean like I've suicided my stream for like years on League of Legends and shit. And I'm like, I don't care. We're playing League today. You guys, if you don't like it, leave. I always try to maximize for things that I enjoy because I don't ever want to be at a spot where I feel like I'm having to make content because my audience wants it or because like I have to do it to keep my channel going. I just try to do what I want.
That's a very important thing to do, I think. You don't want to accrue an audience who is only there for content that you hate making.
Yeah. Major
you
highway,
can tolerate that for a little while. You know, you can tolerate a certain amount of it. Like certainly sometimes there will be a thing on stream. Like this new like Let's Up Dog video that I watched.
Yeah.
Honestly didn't want to watch it. I'm kind of done with that drama. I wasn't interested. But I was like, you know what? People want me to watch it. I'll probably have a good response with some good insight. It'll make a good clip. It'll get a bunch of views and people will want to see that from me. So that's, you know, I did that, right? But then other times on stream, you know, the end of my streams, I'll stream for like 8-9 hours. And 4 hours of it are generally me playing Fortnite and just bullshitting. And at the beginning, when I would do that kind of stuff, my viewership would go from like 1,000 viewers to like 400. And now I'll get like, you know, 15 to 1,700 when I'm streaming drama, and I'll get like 13 to 1,400, or maybe even a little more. Maybe it'll just maintain while I'm playing Fortnite, because I know I have to condition the audience to what I want to do, because I have to actually like what I'm doing to do it well. And I think that's really important.
That conditioning part is really hard for a lot of people though, because they very quickly fall into audience capture patterns where as soon as they do something that the audience doesn't like, they're like, oh God, they're like mad at me. And it's hard. Like even I have to gear my mind towards, listen,
you just
motherfuckers,
have to say, like,
we're training this. This is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, leave. I stream, I'll do drama, I'll cover the subreddit for like 2 or 3 hours every day, and then after that I do what the f I want. I said I'm reading a book today, we're reading a book, okay? Sit here and like it, or get the f and come back tomorrow. Yeah.
This is a phenomenon with like musicians a lot, where
I was like, oh God,
blow up off of an album people really like.
I can't hold
and
that,
the people, because they like that album.
Hopefully these guys are close enough
it's a very
to
hard
support
thing
each other.
to say, listen, I appreciate you guys want that, but I'm going to do what I want to do. And on one hand, it might cause a momentary dip in money or something like that, but long term, it's much better for these artists because they can actually make art that they care about, what they want to do, and they'll enjoy touring and stuff like that.
Well, it is the usual Russian strategy, just throw bodies at it,
but
grind it down to nothing.
They're going to burn out and just be miserable, and basically only be remembered for the past if they never try to move forward.
Yeah,
and you have to be willing to say f the audience a little bit, just a little bit. It's really important, and that's the thing that I always try to remember. It's like, you know, I'm in a position, I'm financially fortunate enough that I can ride stuff like that out a little bit. I don't have to worry that much about like a month in views dipping a little bit, because I know that long term it's going to be beneficial for me. It's going to be beneficial for my channel. I'm going to enjoy the job more. I'm going to want to spend more time on it. And the more time you want to spend on the job, the better you're going to do long term, right? Versus if you burn yourself out on shit you are not that interested in. And then within 3 months, you're like, well, now I only have and it can happen very quick. Now I only have an audience who wants me to do this one fucking thing, and they won't watch it unless I do it. And then you're kind of starting back at square one before you were from that. And it's very hard. It's possible, but it's hard to crawl out of that.
Yeah, I agree.
We just got right.
When you were, so you're 18, 19, which was like 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, sorry. When? How many years did you stay with college?
A year and a half.
A year and a half? So when you get to college and when you're in college, firstly, did your parents ever try to ultimatum you? Like, you're going to school, no more of this YouTube stuff? Did they not care how much time you're putting into it because your grades were good, or what?
They were just like, you need to go to school. We know you're going to do the YouTube thing at this point, but prioritize school. Basically, was it.
And then at some point in college, clearly you're like,
parents?
no, I'm
Pretty
going to
good
prioritize
parents?
the YouTube thing. Was it because you were making enough money? Were your parents supportive of that? Were they worried? Did they?
They were not supportive. To an extent, my mom is still not. But basically, the calculation with it was
just worried about, you know,
the
how
first
it's
year
gonna
of
impact
college. I was doing it. It was doing pretty well. I was making consistent money relatively. I was making like $5 grand a month. It was pretty good. It was enough to live off of, certainly.
Did you ever have like did you figure your taxes out really quickly, or did you ever have like a year where you were like completely done that?
My mom is a CPA.
Okay, wow, must be nice.
She did it for me.
Nice. Okay, the silver spoons are just falling out of your mouth.
Literally.
All right. Wow.
Which I'm very thankful for, because I fucking hate doing taxes. Just the monotony. But I was making decent money, and I got to the end of that year, and I was like, well, I don't like school. It kind of sucks, but I guess I managed to like still make decent money doing it. I can just ride this out the rest of school, right? I didn't want to be there. I was constantly complaining about it to my girlfriend at the time, my friends. I was like pissed the off, and I was especially jealous that some of my friends had not gone to school and just done YouTube stuff. And
friends that you'd had from high school, or friends that you'd made online?
Online friends. Online friends that I'd known for a long time.
Gotcha.
And I was pissy about that. I was like, fuck these guys. They wake up whenever they want. They make videos whenever they want. And I never would have done that. Like, I don't think I can just... I'm not like one of these like willy-nilly artists. I was like, I'll just work whenever I want. But I envied the freedom that they had. I didn't like that I was locked into this thing that I didn't want to be there. The education was bad. The students were okay. I had a few friends, but it wasn't like I was having like the most explosive party time of my life. And it was COVID too. So we were wearing masks.
That's right, yeah.
We were wearing masks. I was taking, some of my classes from my dorm. And so it just sucked. But I was like, I'll ride this out. I get to my sophomore year, and the sophomore dorms, for whatever reason, were way shittier than the freshman dorms. The freshman dorms were relatively nice. I had my own room because it was COVID, so I didn't have a roommate. It was my own place. It had air conditioning, and I basically had freedom within that. The next time, for sophomore year, the dorm I was given, I was alone, kind of, but it was like
looking good
space in the middle of it, so I could hear my neighbors. The room was much smaller, and there was no AC, and it was fucking sucked.
Awesome.
It was
what school did you go to? Do you say? Or?
I can't say.
Okay.
But it was just like a normal liberal arts college. Like, it wasn't like a prestigious.
Don't worry, it's all good. Okay. I understand what's going on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anyway, what do you mean?
No, it's all good. Go ahead.
Okay.
I won't tell anybody.
Okay,
I swear.
Of course.
Okay. Anyway, the dorm sucked. The dorm sucked. It was like,
was it like required dorming for your first 2 years or whatever? Or did you live with your parents? Or?
It was hours away. The school was like 4 hours away from my parents. So I was going to school there. It just sucked. The living situation. They wouldn't let me put in AC because I said it would use up too much electricity and like blow a fuse or something, which is retarded.
Oh my god.
So I had like this fan on me. I was sweating my balls off. I hated it.
I remember this.
At this point in your college stuff, was anybody ever recognizing you on campus, or not really at that point yet?
No, and we were all wearing masks.
Man, I'm just not sure if I want to.
No, I'd never been recognized in person at that point.
Gotcha.
But I had, I don't know, like 160,000, 150. I was making okay money, but this is when like freshman year was relatively easy, I would say. Sophomore year, it was still kind of easy, but it was just it was a little bit more that just tipped me over the edge, where I like couldn't dedicate as much time to YouTube as I wanted. And I really was not having a good time, and I was like, I just want to make the YouTube thing work. And at this point, I slowly came to the conclusion over that like 3-4 month semester that I'm just gonna say fuck it. I'm gonna try to save up as much money as I can. If I have to say fuck finals, I will. So I started taking a bunch of Adderall. I'm prescribed. I started making videos in my dorm a lot. I started skipping a bunch of classes. And by the end of that semester, I had like 70 or 80 grand in savings, something like that. And I skipped.
Was there ever like a thought where you're like, I'm gonna run away, or I'm gonna like abandon my parents' financial support of me to pursue the YouTube thing? Was that like why you were saving money?
That's why I was saving the money, because I was like, because they had told me like,
you're like, they're gonna disown me and I'm gonna go out on my own way. And
I mean, literally what they had told me was like, if you're not going to college, you're not going to live here.
And now you had to find a new accountant too, so
yeah, I was gonna be fucked. But I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. It was just like, I need to make enough money. And in my mind, I think I wanted 80 grand, because in my mind that was like 3-4 years of rent and like groceries. I could like live and figure it out, right, till the end of my college term.
Yeah. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever communicate with him over any of this, or how much younger is he?
Tactical for now.
He's 4.5 years younger than me. At the time, I guess.
Can I
was like
save it here? Because honestly, I want to beat
he
that
knows doing
mod.
YouTube stuff.
Sure.
But it wasn't like he wasn't really at the point where I could like talk to him about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
he is
14,
now.
barely a human, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it just wasn't.
It bugged out last time.
I was mad. I was miserable, and so I just put all my time to making YouTube videos. I remember there was this one like 48-minute long video I made about this guy named Maximilian Muss, and I wrote, recorded, edited, and posted that video within like 48 hours. I was up all that time. I was going crazy in my dorm. I was skipping classes, and
general.
I remember my finals. I think I had like 6 finals or something, and I think I skipped like 3 or 4 of them. I just didn't go because finals week
the most interesting
it was coinciding with like November, December ad revenue.
Oh,
and I was like, I was like, oh, this is a big deal. So I remember one month I think I made like 11 grand, and then I think another month I made like 17 grand, and so that stacked with what I already had and the stuff I'd been making from before. I think I crossed like the 80 grand threshold, and so I remember I drove home from school. And my parents were like, hey, it's your grandmother's birthday. We're going to go there. I was like, okay. So I stopped at my grandmother's house. We celebrate her birthday or whatever. It was, nice. Everybody's asking me how's school. I'm like, it's good. It's good. It's going really well. We drive home. And as soon as I walk in the door, I'm like, I'm dropping out. And they were like, they didn't even believe it. They thought I was going to change my mind. They were livid.
Was all of the bank account stuff and everything in your name? Like it was all going to your stuff? Or
it was in my name, but they could see it. They could see how much I was making. But that didn't really... They didn't really care. In their mind, YouTube was just a very fleeting thing.
Sure. That's crazy, though, that your parents would see you accumulating like tens of thousands of dollars in an account, and they wouldn't be thinking like, wow, I hope he sticks with college, I guess. Yeah.
And their mind is like, he needs to get a degree. Because that's how they did it. And they were, I think they were the first in their families to go to school. Well, I mean, my dad had siblings. They all went to school, but they're the first generation to go to school. So it was a big deal to go to school. And they did the very normal process. They went through high school, they went to college, they got jobs after because of their degree, and it made sense for them. And that just wasn't something I was really interested in at that point. And especially with the thing I was going for. And to this day, my mom kind of wants me to go back to school in some way, which is funny because I guess I'm like a millionaire now. But
you're way better than that, right? You're way better than those college losers.
I don't need those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
They're cucks. They should have done YouTube.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I just like, I was still very uncertain internally with my decision. I was like, maybe I just my whole life up. But I held on the decision. I eventually drove back to school to get the rest of my stuff I left in my dorm. I officially unenrolled. I came home. They didn't kick me out. They let me stay there. And like the following August, I got my first apartment, which is still the place I live in now, but I'm trying to move out to get a house. And I just kept doing it.
That would be nice.
It's worked ever since, but certainly for, I'd say, maybe even like a year after that, I had a very big uncertainty about like, is this really going to work out? Did I make the right decision? At this point, there's not a lot of doubt in my mind that I did the right thing, but definitely when everybody around you is saying like, what the f is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? And I don't blame them for thinking that either. It's not like a thing where like, you didn't believe in me. Like I wouldn't believe in me. Like you're doing YouTube videos. Like that doesn't make sense. It doesn't equate. But right.
It's really hard when you're, this sounds so, this is a content creator episode, guys. Okay. So if you're not a content creator, f you. It's hard when you're kind of like forging this path because in any other circumstance, if anybody was to ask you for advice in your position, like a reasonable person would say, you need to stop and not do this. This is probably not going to work out. Yeah.
Right
and then you also have like the problems. I said this with Kanye, where when Ye is like, I'm like the king of the world, like everybody, blah blah blah, and it's like, I mean, with that much attention, the richest guy on the planet, like how would you even separate out like a delusion from reality if you're Kanye West, right? And obviously we're not at that level. You're not at that level yet. I'm getting there. But like, when you're thinking like, imagine talking to a therapist and you're like, I feel like everybody is like thinking about me and talking about me all the time and it's really stressful, and the therapist is like, oh no, nobody thinks about you as much as you think they do. And I'm like, okay, well here's like a 500-page thread on a random website where everybody is talking about me constantly. Like it's really hard to process and deal with all of that. And again, I keep stressing this, you'll understand this when you're older, okay? But the fact that you're doing all of this at such a young age is also really crazy, because people are already dealing with normal like social interactions, like their first big breakup, or missing mom and dad, like going to college, or trying to figure out what they want to do for work. Like these are like the huge like person-defining things that are happening at your age range, but you're already like set out like a decade's worth into a career path, which is just super fascinating to me.
Well, I would have those thoughts. Like I would, I'm still a person. I would go through those problems, but I would basically be like, well, that sucks. Time to edit a YouTube video.
Sure.
Like that was kind of my mentality, and for whatever reason, it just took precedent in my mind. I do remember when I dropped out. The thing that was interesting is like my parents are they very much disapproved of it. All my buddies from high school, when they came home that winter and I talked about what I had done, they were like, "You did the right thing. You're gonna be fine." For whatever reason, I guess just for seeing me do it for so long and seeing how obsessed I was with it, they had faith that I would figure it out.
There's a really hard razor to walk where it's like a razor's edge difference between some people are way too arrogant, they think too highly of themselves and they lack the humility to be successful, and some people are way too like skittish or scared and then they lack the actual like motivation to push through. And there's like a very fine edge of where you're humble enough to see your faults but you're arrogant enough to know that you're going to make it, and you have to like combine that to like make it in the content creator world.
You have to like constantly walk that tightrope, I think.
Because if you fall too far off of either edge, the perfectionist, like you said, just stops making content or gets defined by one big blow up or one bully video, and then the other guy becomes
arrogant. Like you'll just
boogie too.
You'll ignore all the problems. You just think it'll last forever.
What do you think up to this point? I guess we can say up to now. Fuck it, because we're basically at now. What do you think has been like the hardest part of your career? What's been like the singular most difficult thing to deal with, or the singular most like span of time to deal with?
Definitely when I dropped out of school. That just sucked. I was like, because when I dropped out, my friends did come back for a little bit. We were hanging out, and then they went back to school. So I was in my hometown. I was alone. My parents didn't like what I was doing. They were reminding me of it every day, which I don't blame them. They were pissed off at that.
They didn't ever like threaten to like take the computer again or anything, even though I know you're older, but like you're living in their house. They're not like, we're not getting internet for you. Like,
I think they would say things like that, and then it would never really follow through for whatever reason. I think they just didn't know how to deal with the situation. Like it was too late. They were under the impression I would go back to school, and I think at the time I would probably lie to them and be like, yeah, I will.
Did they ever like push you onto like a school therapist or anything like that, or
no?
No, okay. And you never got in trouble for a video you made where your mom was like, why did you call this guy a pussy or say a bad word? They didn't care about anything like that in your videos?
They don't pay attention that closely. Once in a while they'll be like, yeah, I saw this thing about you when I looked up your name, and I was like, don't worry about it. And they're like, okay.
Oh, okay. They
don't really worry about that kind of stuff. Sometimes my mom will be like, what's going on here? And I'll just be like, I'll give her like a brief summary. She'll be like, I think you're wrong. And I'll be like, okay. And that'll be it. So yeah, my mom is at odds with it a little bit, but she appreciates the fact that I'm making money at the very least. She sees that now. She still is like, you should go back to school.
Skills are pretty good in this game, if I recall.
Maybe.
Let me see here. What's gonna happen?
I feel like YouTube's a pretty good business school if you're just hiring contractors.
Sure.
I feel like I'm learning
but you could
a lot.
also like, have you ever seen The Wire?
Why do you always mention The Wire?
Because it's a good show. It's the best show on TV that's ever been made ever. You'll appreciate it when you get older.
Better.
Shut up.
It is.
But they're one of the drug dealer guys. He goes to
and the Sopranos. And the Sopranos, they're not.
They're not what?
It's a good show. Better show.
Oh, like you identify more with the characters in The Sopranos?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because yeah, okay.
Yeah, relatable.
Yeah, for you especially.
Representation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, in The Wire, what's the point of The Wire?
Yeah, the drug dealer guy that you can't relate to, he goes to econ school and then he practices the economics that he learns in his like drug dealing stuff. That could be you, except with MBA on YouTube.
Maybe, but the time spent doesn't really seem worth it. What do you think?
Make videos out of it.
Make videos out of it. Going back to econ school.
Yeah.
Here I am in class, guys.
What's up?
What's up? It's me, Turkey Tom. Yeah, that'd be so epic.
That would be epic.
Time to go back.
When you've gotten you've gone in a pretty short amount of time from having heroes on YouTube to
make the all-electric Cadillac Lyric all yours. A stylish SUV that takes luxury.
This is gonna be risky.
All the way to electric.
Well, we got
Experience yours today at Cadillac.com/lyric.
growing up, and I imagine at this point you've probably surpassed a decent chunk of people, if not where their height was, at least where they are now. What's that like? Have you, when you started meeting people, I'm sure you have, if not like in person, at least online through chatting, when you started meeting people that were like these larger than life figures that you looked up to on YouTube and you watched their videos all the time, and now you meet them as like an equivalent or larger content creator, what is that feeling like?
It was really weird at first, but a lot of that kind of happened when I was a teenager, because we would just DM on Twitter. I've kind of become desensitized to it at this point, just from meeting enough of them in real life. But one of the more surreal ones I had not that long ago was
Besides
I hung out.
me.
Ha! Yeah, I hung out with Adam YMS, who I was watching a lot when I was like I say like 14 or something. I loved his movie reviews, and that was weird to meet him in person and like see he was a real person in real life you can talk to. Not that I didn't know that, but it is once in a while I'll still have those moments where it's like, what the I kind of felt that way when I met Alex Jones, honestly, even though I met him for like 1 second in the video we did.
Oh, I remember that.
That was so I don't know. You don't register sometimes these people are in a 3D space. They have their own thoughts and feelings and emotions just like you. Maybe not just like you, but...
Do you ever file, do you ever have a moment where you meet people like this and they're filed in your head as like these kind of like larger than life people, and then you meet them and you like integrate them immediately into your like mind and how their job works and everything else? Or has that always been like a regular process? Like, I guess like growing up, there were certain content creators, people whose websites I would read, where they just like, they exist in like this mythical, legendary, untouchable part of my mind. And then I would eventually meet them and chat with them and be like, oh wait, hold on. Like, I totally understand like everything you do. And like, you might even see things where it's like, you could do this way better. Or like, you just have such a better understanding of them, I guess. Yeah.
I've definitely had that. And I've also had moments where I feel like a lot of people I watched growing up kind of got lazy or got shitty. And I'm hyper aware of that, and I'm very paranoid about that happening to me.
I do think.
Which is why I don't want to feel comfortable in my job. I don't want to feel like things are too good. I don't want to feel like I've reached some kind of apex. I always try to feel like I'm at the beginning of something, basically. Not that the stuff I've learned isn't valuable, but basically just to say that there's a lot more I can learn, and there's a lot more I can take in from other stuff. But yeah, I've definitely noticed that it seems like some of the guys I grew up watching kind of fell off a little bit, and probably talked about some of them on YouTube, but it's kind of it's disconcerting to see someone get lazy with the position they're in and not really progress past that. I feel like in my mind, it's always a noble thing to be like, okay, here's where I am now. How do I replicate the past 5 years of my life? Because I started here, now I'm here. How do I go from here proportionally to the next thing, right? Like if you start at 10,000 subscribers, you get to 1 million. It's like, how do I get to 10? You know what I mean? Obviously, 10's a very big goal. It's hard to get there. Very few people get there. But in my mind, you should be aiming pretty high always. And it's disconcerting to see people just get comfortable with what they have. Maybe I'll feel different about that. Maybe I would if I was a little older. I feel lucky in the fact that I'm 21. 21 is kind of like a hungry age for things.
Do you still set like goals in terms of like where you want to be subscriber wise and everything? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. I write it out on documents I have on Google Drive, and I'm like, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen.
And you started using
Obsidian.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I was talking about heroin, but
oh, I like that too.
Yeah,
I like
really chills you out, I think. Yeah,
it does chill me out. I'm on heroin right now. That's why I'm so nice. That's not why I'm not saying Despacito.
What up?
Your mom?
Yeah, you screamed like skibbity toilet like 50 times before we started the camera.
Skibbity.
What why'd you guys start using Obsidian? Where'd you even get the recommendation from?
Your streams.
Really?
That would be a
I was just like that looks useful.
Did you get the sync and everything?
Sure.
On all your devices? It's actually so nice. Oh my god. Are you very like collaboration or community oriented, or are you like existing kind of in your own little bubble?
I have a bunch of people who work for me, so we're always collaborating. I think I have 8 contractors consistently, maybe
Do you ever
10.
think about, I feel like there are people that try to grow as parts of communities or movements. Is that like an intentional choice to kind of like do your own thing, or? Yeah,
definitely. I'm somewhat honestly paranoid about my association with you because I don't want to rely on you for content.
You don't like being the biggest orbiter?
Am I the biggest orbiter?
Probably.
I guess I don't want to be in a position where like I need your community's approval or something like that, or I need to like rely on what you do, which is why I try to space out calling into the streams. There was a time early on when I started calling into the streams. I think I was calling in like a few times a week. It was a lot of fun. But I don't want to be. There's this thing. I'll go back to music. This thing that happens with bands where I heard this band talk.
Do you like metal?
Every time I start my match,
talk about how they wanted to stop opening for Metallica, and they were like, why the fuck did you do that? Like, they're the biggest band in the world. And they're like, well, we don't want to be seen as an opening band. We want to be seen as a headlining band. We don't want to be seen constantly in tandem with this other person, right? Maybe it would be different if we do a bunch of other streamers like Asmon Gold or something who was having people calling to his stream all the time. Or there was some XQC or something. You're really the only big streamer that I really know, and so I don't want to just be the guy who calls into your streams to talk about stuff and leaves, and that's all people know me for, at least from your community, right?
Remember the first epic conversation that you had on my stream? Do you remember who that was with?
No.
Oh yeah, shit, I forgot that. You were like 19 then, huh? Is that 2 years ago? I was gonna say the one with XQC was pretty funny, but
yeah, that was like the second or third. I think the second one was Super Mega, and that was the third one.
Okay. Do you
That was awesome. That was fucking epic. I don't think I'll ever be funnier in my life than I was in that moment.
Do you
Merc? Okay, this is the thing when I'm talking about headlining. Merc will always be known for that fucking moment. In your community, does anybody remember anything about fucking Merc other than she's crazy and she got Despacito'd and Gangnam styled, little bro? She got Dami Tucosi'd.
That were moments. There were moments there for sure.
That was awesome. I don't know how I could recreate that, but that was the funniest I've ever been in my life. I don't know what happened that day, and I wasn't even streaming.
True. Do you feel pressure to cover certain things now as being part of, like, even if you're not trying to be part of a community, you kind of are like part of the commentary community, like that ecosystem, I guess, of people. Do people ever come to you and be like, bro, you need to cover this, or why aren't you talking about this? Or if you see like all the guys in the community talking about something, like, fuck, I need to make a video on this, or...
Sometimes I feel that, but generally I don't know. People on stream will be like, you need to watch this, and I'll be like, I'll look at it for a minute, and I'll just be like, I don't care. I'll just click off. I don't feel like obligated to cover anything in particular. I feel obligated to do my coverage well when I do it. Like if I'm going to get invested in something, I need to have the same level of consistency roughly across it. But I don't really feel a lot of obligation to do stuff like that. And once again, that kind of plays into the whole audience thing. I don't want to feel like I need to do what the audience wants me to do at that moment. Once again, I'm somewhat paranoid about something like that happening, and I don't want to be put in a position where I feel like I have to do what they want to do or they won't watch me, right? I want to be able to talk about what I'm interested into, which is why I like to do other random bullshit and like reacting to funny videos and stuff, because I don't want people to only come to me just for my take, to have the best take. I think that's a really hard position to be in, where you're like in the takes factory. There is this real thing on Twitter that's manifested and extends to streamers as well, where people just want to see their preconceived opinion reaffirmed by you.
I don't think I got this.
And
maybe
you know, obviously there's people in my audience that watch me because they generally agree with what I have to say, and that's going to happen to people with similar thought processes. But I don't want to get in a position where, like, part of the reason I'm sick of this false allegation shit is I don't want to have an audience of people who are looking for me to shit on a victim.
I was just going to ask you about that. When you're creating content, do you ever think of like the worst types of people that will be in your corner? Like for me, when you mentioned the girl thing, the victim thing, because women are victims. When you mentioned that, I remember back on Twitch, I used to complain as the kind of softcore porn thing rolled around, where girls were dressing crazy and all this, and I'd be like, I don't think porn should be on Twitch. I don't think that softcore porn should. I think that these outfits are insane. Like, we need to stop. The people that would show up on my mentions would start like linking streamer girls that just like had like some cleavage or like had big boobs. They would, and I'd be like, no, not like that. And I'd have to. I'm trying to have a position, but then the people that start to come into your corner are like the worst types of people, and it's like, I don't want to associate with any of you losers.
There's definitely a thing that can happen where you'll accrue an audience unintentionally who's not really listening to what you have to say. They just like that you're saying it from a certain perspective that they hold. And I don't want to have that, which is, once again, why I'm sick of the false allegation stuff right now, because we had like 7 in a row. And I don't want to build up an audience where I can't talk about a real allegation and cover it, honestly, and be like, this guy is guilty.
Or women will come out like a police report and be like, no, he's fucking lying. And it's like, okay, hold on, chill. Okay.
Yeah, why don't you file it 1 minute later?
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like, it's a frustrating thing. And that's ultimately why I think this goes back to the false accusation thing. A really big problem with like Lex Updog or Katie Bugs is, by making these false allegations or these very dubious claims, you contribute to that audience existing on YouTube who are looking to shit on the next victim. And you will inevitably contribute, intentionally or unintentionally, to the next guy who is gonna, maybe not be as level-headed as I am, who is gonna accrue an audience off of just like, this person's lying, this person's lying, this person's lying, this person's lying, no matter what the context is, no matter what the situation is. And that ultimately will hurt all the real victims in the long run. And that's a bad thing for discourse. I don't want to have that. So yeah, I'm kind of praying there's a real pedophile soon. Can we get a real one? Like, can there be like one?
We can't get open any of the Mama Max investigation files. Maybe he had a lead somewhere.
Yeah, we'll go deep into that. I'm gonna give him a call real quick.
Okay, that's good.
He's got a lot of
good stuff. Time to grab the voice changer. Do you
Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Stephen Bonnell II.
I feel like I'm watching the intro to like another Saw movie every time I turn.
You have built your career off of having sex with women. How would you feel if you had sex with men instead? Joseph Rogan.
Thanks.
Mr. Mutant.
When I make content online, I'm usually responding to people that are attacking me.
Okay.
So I don't feel bad attacking them. Because fuck them. Because they attack me
tanks
first.
pushing up here. That
when you guys, as commentary people, are going to make stories on people, do you ever think before you like go down a road where you're like, I'm about to publish a video that's going to get over 1 million views that might end this person's fucking career or life, or how much are you thinking about the ramifications of whatever person you're making a video on before you like pull the trigger on something?
I definitely think about it. I mean, I think
Scottfly, the car guy, is here to help you buy. Toyota of Denton has a wide variety of vehicles on the lot ready for you to take home today. Our transparent pricing means no hassle for you, and our factory-certified technicians will always have your vehicle running smoothly. You need a car? We got a guy. Stop by and visit Scotty Fly.
the level of criticism generally just depends on what they actually did, and there should be like a proportionality analysis there probably for how you're going to go about that. But you know, with some people, I think the approach you have to take is just like, I may be covering a situation, but ultimately it's just stuff they did. And if you're being as accurate and objective as possible with the information, like with Mama Max, like whether or not I'm the one covering it, the guy is gonna lose his career. I'm just informing people of the fact that he did all this shit.
Do you ever have like rules set for like, I'm not going to cover like some dumb drama between like a 5,000 YouTube or 5,000 subscriber YouTuber if it's just, even if it's like kind of juicy? Like, do you try to stick to larger ones, or are you just like following the interesting stories basically?
No, if something's really interesting, I might cover it from a smaller channel, but I will say sometimes some of the smaller stuff, it's like the return on investment for the time you put in is not that good. And the story sometimes is not that interesting. I'll get people asking me to cover the most schizo drama in the world, and sometimes it will be genuinely really fucking interesting. Like I'll find something, I'll be like, what the fuck is this?
I
I've never heard about
1
this.
point.
Like some obscure lol count. It's like, nobody, how has nobody talked about this guy? But then sometimes there'll be a bigger drama where I'm like, this is fucking retarded. Like I just can't bring myself to care for whatever reason.
Just stop goofing.
So yeah, definitely that kind of thing will happen, but I guess I'm not so worried about what the audience is going to do with the information, because I think I have a responsible way of conveying it. And unfortunately, there are going to be some nut jobs in the audience who are going to take things a little far sometimes. I avoid that. You know, I don't like those people. I don't support them in whatever they're going to do. I don't want anybody, you know, having a subscribe to PewDiePie situation in my name. But unfortunately, there are nut jobs out there that are going to, you know, take whatever you say and run with it and misinterpret whatever it is. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Do you worry about that? I know you don't really. You had a conversation with someone from Twitter recently who was like, so I can't just shit talk you?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. For me, I feel like it's kind of mean. Like, I'll try to draw the line sometimes. It depends. But, like, the thing that I don't like is I'm about to do the thing that we said you should never do. I'm complaining as a large content creator. I don't think people realize sometimes how they contribute to, like, the dehumanization of you. So I'll deal with a person, and they're one of, like, 10,000 people that are calling me, you know, like a pedophile, a rapist, a Nazi, like all these things. And then I'll turn, like, my Eye of Sauron onto that person. And they're like, I can't believe you're attacking me. Like, I'm a small content creator.
Everyone else did it.
Yeah. And it's like,
they thought they were safe with the herd.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, it's very frustrating. It's like, okay, well, I can never attack any of you, but like all 10,000 of you, plus your 150,000 fans, plus your million other people that are all getting involved, can all like come at me. And it's like, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like if the person's like being pretty brutal, like, no, I'm going to be fairly, and most of the time it won't even be, you know, I don't actually care that much, because most of the time it won't even be that much. Like, I'll critique the person, but I'm not like going ultra hard. Very, very rarely does that happen unless they really deserve it.
Like Bunty King.
Like what?
Bunty King.
I don't even remember that guy, but I do remember that guy, and he probably did deserve it. Whatever I said,
You said KYSU inbred, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, he deserved way worse than that.
He is inbred.
Yeah. But when I'm attacking people too, like when they come out and they complain about the harassment, they'll show me like 2 DMs, and it'll be some guy saying like, everything you said in that Destiny video was so stupid. I'm like, really? That'll be like that? So nah, I don't know. I think if my fans like genuinely started mass harassing people, or like there was real harassment, I would be a lot more careful about who I attack. But I think that my audience is pretty well trained.
How do you feel about like how much of this stuff that you see, because there's a lot of stuff about you online. I've seen on Twitter, especially recently in the past, I don't know, 4 months, there's like waves of hate where everybody, I feel like a bunch of people on Twitter are discovering who you are through these clips. Some of them are old clips, like the incest debate or the Amos Yee thing or stuff like that, or like the dipshit protesters clip. They're finding out about you. How much of that do you think is worth responding to, especially when it seems like the people involved, we had a conversation about this recently, they're not really acting in good faith and they don't really want to listen to what you have to say? Like, is that, Do you have like an assessment for like this is worth responding to because it has so many views and this isn't?
I think I've actually spent a lot of time over the past few months trying to like strategize around stuff like that because it is like a significant roadblock sometimes. Because if somebody comes preloaded with a certain perception, you're already playing from so far behind, so you can't even catch up.
Yeah.
There's just
like some people are like unconvincible.
I wouldn't say unconvincible, but where they're at right now, they're unconvincible. So it takes a lot of movement. I think I've kind of had a double-edged sword, kind of like you, where I'm trying to grow outside of communities. And there's pros and cons to that. You know, a pro to that is the audience you grow is your own, and you don't have to worry about like the ebb and flow of whatever community you were a part of. But a con of that is you are truly in your own quarter.
And sometimes that can like, it's kind of a frustrating thing I've realized recently. I was thinking about this on the car ride to the airport. Like, sometimes I wish I was a little more schizo or a little more retarded, because you get really rewarded for behavior like that sometimes. Like the whole... Like basically like internet populism. You get rewarded so much for that in the short term.
Maybe. I think especially if you're part of communities though. If you're on your own doing it, I think people just kind of look at you like you're crazy.
Sometimes, but like I just feel like so many people looking back have like blown up so much from being wrong. And I don't know how much they knew they were wrong. I mean,
I don't know again,
or like dishonesty.
Yeah, but I don't think it's because they were wrong or dishonest, because they were saying the thing that the community they were growing with really wanted to hear.
Right. But sometimes I guess I'm just like I'm envious. It's like, I wish I could have that like in 3 million subscribers in like 3 months and blow up.
Yeah,
which ultimately is built on like bullshit and usually comes tumbling down for them.
Yeah.
But it's like look at how fast Sneeko grew on YouTube before he got banned.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I look at that and I'm like, what the
It's insane, yeah.
What the man?
Yeah, no, I'm
gonna be working for 5 years to get there. And it won't come tumbling down for me because I'm not spewing bullshit. I won't get banned and have to go to Rumble and lose my audience and be seen as a fucking cuck by the entire internet. I won't have that. But it's like, man, just that explosive growth is like, you get that tang of jealousy sometimes. It's like, what the you get that?
No, because I've been here long enough to see the rise and fall of so many people. But I mean,
I've seen it too, but I just get this thought in my mind where it's like, oh,
I'm just like,
that must the adrenaline must be crazy.
You write them down in a notepad, and you're like, I'll check on that guy in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
but the
adrenaline from that kind of thing must just be like so...
For those people?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, yeah, you're getting hyped on a ton of... Yeah, but then those people suffer the worst audience capture, the worst egos, the worst... Yeah, everything. Like, it's just... Yeah, I think that the slow growth, because you kind of had it, although you spiked quite a bit in the past 2 years, but like your growth has been kind of more steady rather than just like one moment and then you kind of like come back or whatever, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think is better.
I agree it's better. I agree it's better long term for sure. But sometimes I'm just like, man, I've never had that kind of like it's always just taken me time to get to where I am, right? And like ultimately the growth I've had over the past 2.5 years or something was built off of the previous 4, where I was just like, you know, talking to some people, but it was like very slow growth. And that's always going to be the case for me, I think, because I don't have that thing. Or like I think I just don't have that like instant relatability aspect that someone like, I mean, let's say like Aiden Ross has, right? Like he blew up so fast, it's like mind numbing. Like ultimately his audience doesn't really care about what he has to say. They're kind of fucking retarded. They probably will leave him. They're leaving him in droves right now. They probably will leave him ultimately very soon. But it's just like crazy to see when someone blows up like that.
Oh, unfortunate.
I don't know how much of that is luck or how much of that is a calculated thing for them, but
it happens.
Yeah, it does.
For the commentary stuff, most of the stuff is negative. You ever think about that? Like, do you ever think like, God, every day when I make videos on people, it's usually highly critical. I don't say much positive stuff. Like, do you worry about that? Are you ever overwhelmed by the negativity? You're like, oh, I'm a commentator. Like, this is what we do. It's like news, basically.
I do make sure to make a positive video once in a while about someone I like. I make sure to try and... Something I've worked on is extending some charitability to the person I don't like as much as I can. Obviously, with some people, you got to be like, this guy. But I'm trying to do less of like... There's a TV show I watched that informed my opinion on this a lot. Have you seen Mindhunter?
No.
No? You know anything about it?
Is it about a guy who's really smart?
No. Well...
Is he psychic?
You guys like want to shoot?
The show
is he an investigator? The
show is the semi-true history of some part of the FBI when during the 60s and 70s we had all these serial killers, right? And there were basically crimes that were completely unexplainable. Like previously it was like they were catching like organized crime and it's like, okay, well they wanted money, so that's why they killed these people or sold drugs or did these crimes. Or it was like a crime of passion, like somebody's wife cheats on them. But then they're dealing with all these serial killers like Ed Kemper or Charles Manson, who they kill people and there doesn't seem to be an explicit reason why they do something. There doesn't seem to be an explicit like they did this to them, so they killed them, right? They're killing innocent people. And basically, this show is about the start of behavioral psychology, behavioral science in the FBI, and understanding that some, or pretty much all people like that are made rather than just born like that. It does happen, but I'm not saying that justifies their actions, but what that show kind of showed me is just trying to think a little deeper into why someone did something and understand why they do the thing they do is really valuable in preventing it from happening again, which is what they're trying to do in that show. You know,
and in your case, preventing it from like happening to you, right? Not for the serial killer thing, but like in looking at like YouTubers that.
Zyrtec allergy relief works fast and lasts a full 24 hours, so Dave can be the
deliverer of
a good clear.
Okay, Dave. Let's be more than our allergies. Seize the day with Zyrtec.
Oh man.
Refresh the everyday with Mentos Gum. Yes to fresh.
They get too full of themselves, and then they come tumbling down. Like you see, like what are the mistakes they've made? How can I avoid
preventing it from happening to me, but also trying to give a deeper insight to the audience as to why things go the way they do, right? Like rather than just being like with a false accusation, like, she's a dumb bitch, she's full of shit, f her, she's born evil. Like try to understand like why the f does she act this way, right? And we don't have a full behavioral profile on her. I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like it's interesting to try and pick apart what they do and why they act that way, rather than just be like, put them in the electric chair, which there's a great scene in that show where they're trying to start this behavioral science unit really thing going, and they're trying to talk to police officers about it, and they're trying to interview these serial killers to understand them. And, you know, I don't know if he's the head of the FBI at the time, but he's like a higher up. He's like, what the f are you doing? The job of the FBI is not to understand these people or be their friend, is to put them in the electric chair. And the case that the main character in the show is making is like, well, by understanding why these people act the way they do, we can detect signs early and we can prevent it from happening again. And I think giving people the tools to critically analyze stuff like that and really think about these things under a lens of not just like this person should be shot off the
my
internet,
grenade launcher up,
but also like why they act this way, how did their thought process go, and like how can we inform the audience to think more critically about stuff like this going forward. I think that's a really important thing, and that show impacted my view on that a little bit with other media too, but great show. You guys should watch it if you haven't seen it. Unfortunately, got canceled off season 2. Directed by David Fincher, greatest director of all time. But or maybe written by.
I'll get you in just a moment, Bubs.
I think as I've grown older, unfortunately for YouTube growth, I've grown less interested in super easy pot shots of just like this person sucks because they're whatever.
Well, that's good. You really shouldn't be doing that.
I don't know about trying to see the good in people, but trying to get like a deeper analysis of who they are and why they feel the way they do and their inhibitions and. I don't know. It's kind of shitty because not everybody cares about that. I'd say less people care about that than people care about this guy. So. But as I've grown older, I've grown to care a little bit more about that, I think. And not every video I do has that. Like I made a video about Casey Tron the other day that I'm going to post, which is just like Casey Tron. There's not a lot of deeper analysis there.
True.
But certainly with some of these more complicated situations, I like to try to think like, what the f*** is happening here? You know, how do I dig deeper?
Something that I like, that I feel
My
like
God,
artistically
son,
is prequels. I think a big deal about a prequel, in my opinion, a good prequel is something that takes something that you know from the original and it shows it to you in a totally different light. So maybe there's a villain it makes you more sympathetic towards. Maybe there's a protagonist that it makes you feel more critical of. I like when prequels like give you a different view of something rather than just kind of like giving you the same thing. I thought it was interesting with your vegan gains video. It starts to feel like when people talk about people online, it's like, oh, here's the 497th video on why vegan gains is a sociopath, or here's the 700th video on why Boogie is a piece of shit, or here's like another video on DSP.
But it doesn't really explain why.
Yeah, not only that, yeah, but it's also, it starts to feel like people repeating like Wikipedia. It's like the same like 10 talking points like over and over and over and over again. It's like, what is the point of even this video?
It's profitable, it's easy.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah, because it's like the lowest tier, like, oh shit, another video shitting on this dude. Like, you just eat popcorn and watch, And
I get that, and I will definitely engage in that behavior in the future. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, you know, with the vegan gains video, the thing that I found that, and like doing the video about you, or some of the other stuff I've filmed that we're gonna be posting, is just like, I've grown less interested in just like the easy dunks, and I've grown much more interested in like trying to meet these people and talk to them and understand what the f is right or wrong with them, or why people feel the way they do about them. I found that much more rewarding than I think just making a video where it's just like this guy. It's creatively fulfilling for me. And sometimes I wish it wasn't, because I feel like it's not super conducive to short-term success. I feel like I get a lot more out of just like misinterpreting someone's arguments or be like, this guy is a piece of shit, bye. But I'm trying to do that stuff more often because I just find it really personally enriching and interesting, and I have a lot of fun doing it, and I think the audience appreciates it too.
Are there still like big YouTubers or old heroes or just interesting people that you want to meet that you feel like you don't have access to yet?
I don't know about heroes, but there's definitely really high-profile people I find really interesting. The Paul brothers are big ones.
You ever try to reach out to them?
No, I don't think I'm at that size.
Be on the podcast, you could do it.
Impulsive?
Is that what it's called?
I could not be on that.
Why not?
The thing is, I probably would be very critical of them, but I just find them really fascinating. Like their story is almost like a fucking. It's like a Greek epic or something, or it's like with you and Hassan, and then Vosh is just like this loser on the side. Like it's so interesting to me. Like you guys, you started streaming, you get big doing it, you have an audience. He comes in, he gets introduced. He agrees with you on some issues. You do debate review with him. You criticize him a little bit. He doesn't take it that well, I don't think, the debate criticism, but he takes it better than he would now. And then he like grows a little bigger. He gets a bigger audience, and then you guys have this like schism point, and then he like becomes bigger than you ever were for a while. And then he starts dipping in views, and now you're still growing. And it's like this weird like tragedy of like ideals where like you guys were aligned, but then you separated, and now you kind of hate each other. I think you're constantly like throwing pot shots, but he won't talk to you, and you want to talk to him, and you used to be on talk. Like it's so fascinating. With the Paul brothers, it's like they're two brothers from the same family who both became wildly successful doing YouTube stuff. Well, firstly, they did Vine. They transitioned from Vine to YouTube.
No, you can't. Get away.
They became some of the biggest people on the
You're
site.
I told you before you can't.
The entertainment industry. Now Logan Paul has Prime, which is one of the biggest drink brands in the world. It's making him obscene money from KSI. Jake Paul is like from what I understand, he's a pretty good boxer. I've seen him box.
Regardless of whether he's good or bad, these like matches are pulling in like tons of money. They're selling so many ticket sales and everything on these. Yeah. And he's getting to box. Is it fucking Mike Tyson now?
Yeah.
Is that the next match? Yeah. Like Jesus.
He's like the most famous boxer ever,
arguably in the world. Yeah, in all of history. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so fascinating to me, and like between them as well, like they have like this drama, and it's like trying to figure out how much of it is real versus fake. And like back in the day, Jake dates this girl, and then he cheats on her, and she leaves him, and then Logan fucks her, and then he like brags about it in a song. And then there's like documentaries made about them by like Shane Dawson, and like there's a Netflix one about Jake. And yeah, it's just these people are just super fascinating, and that's why like for the longest time I think I had this approach where like people would say it's drama, it's pointless, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever, like sure. But I think now I'm starting to I want to start making the case that like YouTube drama, if you cover it the right way, doesn't have to be just like TMZ popcorn bullshit. There can be more to it. It's like understanding what makes people tick. It's understanding what makes people do the things they do. It's ultimately an extension of politics. I mean, not everything is political, but understanding why people from different positions interact the way they do, how certain people garner public support. It's like a meta-analysis of all that, and I find that super, super interesting, and interpersonal relationships are super interesting, and I'm not a psychologist. Human psychology, when I watch TV shows, is super interesting.
One people that I think that people have really hard time understanding when they look at like documentaries or they study history is you think that it's just like, oh well, from 1994 to 1996, here's all the facts. But that's not a good documentary. It's not a good study of anything. Like what you're really looking for is like a story, and that's just the process of picking what you want to talk about is already like a huge form of editorialism. And that you can take any of these YouTubers, especially people like the Paul brothers, I guess like me and Hassan, or any number, like even the well-known like the lol cows or whatever. Like telling a certain story about these people, choosing what you want to talk about, and then hitting that angle, I think is really interesting.
Finding the through line.
Yeah, like I was critical before people who want to make the same documentary over and over again, but like that one, I don't remember the name of the guy, but you know what I'm talking about. The really good one about Boogie.
Oh yeah, Mike Klum.
Maybe, yeah. Yes. That was a really interesting, really good. Yeah. And that's like a matter of not just like seeing everything and reporting everything the most accurate way possible. It was like picking like, what do I want this story to be about? And then like collecting original footage, like bringing up relevant stuff from the past and then going through. And that, I think there's not enough appreciation for that process sometimes. Like people just want to like, especially when you're making videos every day, it's like, I'm just reporting on the facts of every single micro event, and I don't really care about any through line or anything like that.
Well, you can't, on a day-to-day basis, it's very hard to do that.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's impossible. It takes, months, if not years sometimes. And
there's not as much of a reward for it too.
No, there's not. The reason why that guy's able to do it is he has his own like production company where he makes a bunch of money, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Yeah, yeah, that stuff isn't rewarded enough, but I think it could be. You know, I think if you do it well enough, you can do things to cater the content you make that's like watchable enough, is clickable enough, but it also explores deeper themes and thoughts and ideas, and you know, it can get a conversation started, and it can be artistically fulfilling for whoever's making it. You know, and I don't think of myself really as an artist on a day-to-day basis, but I guess in a way that is what I do. And I like the art of making a documentary about someone and like trying to figure out like what the is going on, what's going on, why are they like this? Not just like, I mean, the slam dunks, the funny stuff is hilarious. Like you can't deny that. I like that too. But trying to be like, what the is wrong with this guy, or like what made him this way, or like could he be different given different circumstances, is really fascinating, and I like it a lot. Which is why I've enjoyed talking to people like Vegan Gains so much recently, because it's not just like making a video. Like back in the day, Leafy used to make videos about him. He was popular back then. He'd be like, this guy's still psychotic, 35-year-old man. Like stuff like that is funny. And I found it a lot funnier when I was 14. But I found it a lot more enriching to like make a video where I'm like, what the was your past? Why are you like this? You know, I like that a lot. It's really cool, I think.
Is it interesting, or do you consider it all that you used to just make videos kind of reporting on stuff, but now your videos become part of the narrative? So like you might be reporting on something relating to Super Mega, but you making a video on it has now become part of the narrative. So when you're covering stuff into the future about it, your prior coverage is part of essentially the story of what you're covering now. Whereas before, as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, like you're just like on the sidelines basically screaming. So like you're having a direct impact on the trajectory of whatever story it is you're talking about.
It's like, cool, but I'm trying not to be like egotistical about that, because I don't want to view my videos as like they're gonna have influence. You know, I don't want to view it as like I'm gonna have a hand in the story. I want to view it more as just like telling the story as is, giving my opinion as is, and then whatever happens, happens. I don't want to feel like I need to be involved in these situations or get like so emotionally invested that I'm like feeling like I need to change the tides or something. Because ultimately, I don't know any of these people. I was not a fan of Matt and Ryan from Super Mega. I'm not going to be, probably anyway. They posted a few funny videos recently, but yeah, like
you don't consider at all that like it's possible that the reason why they came back was because of that's me too. But yeah, like largely maybe because of like your coverage, or you're pushing that side of the story so hard.
That's definitely part of it, but I don't want to pat myself on the back for that. It's like,
I'm not even thinking necessarily patting yourself on the back, because there could be times where you get it wrong as well. Yeah. And it's like,
I mean, I'm glad that they were able to come back given what happened. Yes, but it's not like seeing them come back, I was like popping champagne. It was like, oh well, that's probably what should have happened, regardless of my input.
Okay.
Like someone else could have filled my shoes in that way, I think. So yeah, I don't want to be too emotionally invested, because I think when you are, you can make poor judgment calls, and that can lead to bad journalism. There's a great movie, once again, by Fincher, called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Have you seen this?
Is that the one where she castrates the guy?
Yes. It's about a journalist who f***ed up a story in the beginning because he's too emotionally invested.
Okay. Was she like the secret bad guy or something, or?
No, she was just a hot girl that was good at hacking and helped him solve a case.
Oh, maybe I didn't.
The story is about a journalist that he reports on a billionaire.
Okay.
And he gets the story wrong, and he gets sued, and he loses his business, basically. And then he gets a call from another billionaire who used to work with this guy he tried to expose. He's like, hey, come solve this family murder for me, and I'll give you what you need to fuck this guy over. And he solves a murder, he gets what he needs to fuck the guy over, but it's like a long process of like retribution. And the moral of the story is not like, well, he could have gotten the guy in the beginning because he was right. It's like you have to do the right process. You have to actually have the information down pat to get. I mean, that's not the only moral of the story, but that's part of my takeaway. It's like
Make the all-electric Cadillac Lyric all yours. A stylish SUV that takes luxury beyond thrilling, all the way to electric. Experience yours today at Cadillac.com/lyric.
Conclusion is very important, but the process to get there is very, very important. Like, I don't want to just make videos where I happen to be right.
Sure.
I don't make videos where like I know I'm right.
The process is always more important. Like how I was recently completely exonerated with my takes on Daisy Chen, and I was right about every part of it because my process was flawless.
Your process was flawless.
It was flawless.
There's no hubris in that at all.
I know people.
You're a people person.
I am a people person.
People.
Yeah. Wow.
How long are we even going?
I'm gonna guess 2 hours.
Has it been 2 hours? Okay.
Hour and a half. Wow, we started real late today. You really f***ed it up.
Yeah, I f***ed it up.
You did.
From your amazing production crew who had everything ready to go?
Well, the problem was it was so hard to make you look like a human on camera. We had to like switch out basically everything and do the lights. You've got these huge bushy eyebrows. You feel like I'm watching FLCL, and yeah, we had to do like filtering.
FLCL?
And, yeah.
Isn't it Fooly Cooley?
Yeah.
FLCL.
That's what you call it in Japanese.
I call your mom in Japanese.
The
great white shark.
What?
Anyway,
what does that mean?
okay, because she bites my. Anyway,
why would she do that? What are you talking about? Anyway,
I had bite marks.
Despacito.
For the perspective of content, do you ever worry that it's hard to find an entry point to your stuff? Like when you're covering these big issues like Israel and Palestine, I feel like there's like a big arc that you go on, and it can be hard for a new viewer to get into it if they haven't been watching for a long time. Do you ever worry about that kind of stuff and like audience acquisition? Like, are you just too deep in these issues, and do you go too far with like the research and stuff, or is that not something you're really worried about?
I think there's a couple things at play. The one thing I've thought about is maybe it would be nice if I'm leaving a topic to like do a full write-up and like hear all my thoughts and everything, but it's like a totally different style of content to me, like doing a formal write-up and then putting everything in one place. Although maybe it's good because some of my manifestos end up getting referenced later on, so maybe having like here's a big write-up on what I feel about a topic as I leave it would be a good idea. People suggested it. But another thing that's kind of cheating is one of the ways that I stay relevant is just because the topics I cover are political, which is as long as you cover the next political topic, you kind of always have relevancy. So even if I get really deep into the Israel-Palestine process now, whatever the next issue that comes up, and we'll get deep into that, and then we kind of go
help take care of the family.
I think once I started medication, I started to realize that my streams have changed significantly, which I kind of joked about in the beginning, having to deal with it, but now I like realize it's
there's like way more focus.
Yeah. Whereas before I'm like I could play games and like kind of like have like I don't think I'll ever top.
There hasn't been like, I feel like there hasn't been streamed drama in a little bit.
I don't think I'm ever gonna top the Lav Mr. Girl shit ever. There will never be. I mean, I think I'd have to stop taking my medicine again and start like talking to a bunch of crazy people again. But right now, like when people get crazy, I'm just like, okay, I'm not talking to you anymore. That's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, I feel like with the Sneeko thing, like you were willing to talk to him, obviously, but you were way more frustrated.
For a little bit,
like when people pitched the idea of you debating him, you were like, what the f we debate about?
Yeah, because it also feels dumb too, because like everything is like, it's weird because everything simultaneously got more important and less important at the same time. Like if you were to argue with like red pill existed on the internet like 7 or 8 years ago, but it has nothing to do with the red pill that exists today. Like before it was just like about like how to get girls and how women suck sometimes, and maybe you like don't like women or whatever, and that's kind of right. But that's it. Yeah, but now if you're red pill, you're also like a Muslim and you like want to vote for Donald Trump and you like hate climate change and Jewish space lasers, and like you have to have like an opinion about everything now. So
the evolution of that term has also been super weird though, because when I remember red pill being a thing was on 4chan in 2016, and that meant you were racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever the fuck.
Oh, maybe
because it was like an alt-right thing.
I got associated with Trump a little bit, like, are you red pilled on things? But when you were in like the online like dating communities, like the MGTOWs and the red pillars and the MRAs, awesome. They were, it was just different. And so now, it feels weird that like if Sneeko was a guy who was like, oh yeah, like I want to debate about like dating stuff, I was like, okay, fine. But because that's like, it's not important, and it's like it's a not important debate about a not important thing. But now it's like not important debates about really important things. Like I don't need Sneeko's take on Israel Palestine. Like this guy's retarded. Like why would anybody listen about anything? And like he pretends to be a Muslim and he doesn't know anything about the religion. So why the fuck would I care about that? Like he pretends to have these really strong opinions on like court stuff, and he doesn't know anything. It's like now everybody has like all these huge debates on these really important topics, but they literally know nothing about it. So the interest of me is like, even with a lot of the mainstream political figures now on this Israel Palestine shit, it's like nobody has any idea about any of the shit they're talking about. So the subject matter is you guys are all engaged in kind of like the rhetorical dunking games, I guess, like the stuff that you said that you're not as interested in. I'm like, oh, well, like
as a father who works full-time, I want to be an example to show them that even though education
take me a little break, I will be back in a little bit.
Can be difficult to achieve.
Thank you for watching.
This is my comeback. Start yours at Purdue.